Oh, guys, I. Oh,
Joe.
never mind. Thankfully, I do feel good.
In the
I
words
just heard.
of George Carlin, must have been Joe Pesci.
I just
Good.
heard a weird snap. By the way, have you guys seen Pedro?
I don't know.
Who's Pedro?
Oh.
Deji from our extended universe from Blue Zone Comms. Have you seen the rest of your troop by any chance?
It's in my contract. I can't mention them.
Oh, of
It-
course.
Because due to license holders.
Yes.
It's because you're the only one left of them.
No,
Just
because
like
I'm Deadpool.
Of course.
Oh, yeah, right.
basically, folks, what you just heard was the snap beginning. Well, the rest of Phase 3, that was the ending of Avengers 3, Infinity War. Oh my god, what a massively glorious and just massive in and of itself movie. And apparently Avengers 4 is going to be even more massive.
Yeah,
It's
I'll get
better
to
than
that.
Age of Ultron.
I'll get it towards the end of this discussion, but yeah, what Jova said is just right.
All right. Basically, it's directed by the Russo brothers, who previously did Captain America's Winter Soldier and Civil War, and was also written by the screenwriters of those two films, plus First Avenger and For the Dark World.
Well, First
Christopher
Avenger
Marcus and
was
Stephen
awesome.
McFeely.
So the same guys who wrote First Avenger made For the
That
Dark
movie.
World, but they
Yeah,
also made this movie.
Wait, can I say something? It's
Yeah.
funny. People kind of tend to ignore the 4 movies, but ironically, they're the most plot-driven things about the MCU.
I love the 4 movies. Sam's the second one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so why does the second one suck so much?
No, I mean,
Well,
it's
the
like
second Iron Man movie
they have
sucks
the
too,
most
so-
plot relevance.
It's
Like,
the 2 curves. It's like, seriously, Iron Man 2, 4 2, Avengers 2. Anyway, let's not talk about those less
In case
fortunate
you
films.
need like something to pinpoint, this particular story is based on 2 major comic book story. The Infinity Gauntlet, which was pretty much Marvel's biggest crossover back in the day. It was made in, I think, 1991, and basically it was, you know, their equivalent of what DC was required in Infinite Earths. The second comic this is based on is Infinity, comic book of 2013, so very recent.
Yeah.
Which still involved the character of Thanos and introduced the Black Order, which shows up in this movie, but more on that later.
Now, originally, this movie was announced as Avengers Infinity War Part 1. However, in 2016, Marvel shortened the title to Avengers Infinity War.
Yeah, and ever since, until the release of the movie, they clearly stated in great details that this was supposed to be still a one-parter.
Yeah, starring the likes
of...
This is just the... I'm just gonna scratch this in a sense that I don't like this, but I'm gonna elaborate much more when we'll get to the end of the plot. For now...
Did they say that because they originally revealed it as a 2-parter? So
well,
yeah, they did, but then they went back on that, that's the thing.
was that a deliberate
I
marketing technique, though?
I think they saw what
Probably.
happened to the Hunger Games.
Whatever, I'll get more, I'll elaborate more as we will go on. For now,
as of the recording of this commentary, this movie is now the 4th highest grossing film of all time at $1.9 billion worldwide.
Sorry, Joe, it looks like Black Panther has met his match.
Well, it's okay,
I'll
Teo.
still,
Black
I'll still
Panther
commend
beat
the fact
Harry...
that he did so well, though.
Dude, Teo, Black Panther has managed to beat Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 and is now currently still in 9th place.
Oh, I thought it was 7th.
No, 9th.
Alright then.
Because Harry Potter
how
got
many
8,
movies-
but blah, 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 blah.
Is it weird how many movies over the last few years have been crossing the billion mark?
And under Disney, no less.
A massive stress, Deji. People seek entertainment in where they can find it. Point being, this is, if you kept the math going, this is a movie that celebrates the 10th anniversary of the start of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which, quote-unquote, officially started with Iron Man, the first Iron Man, even though technically also the Incredible Hulk movie is canon, but
no one cares about
Marvel
Incredible
Studio
Hulk.
wants to kind of slightly forget about that because
The fans, really.
No, it's because Universal most of it.
Even though a certain actor is in the movie from that.
Exactly, Civil War.
It's
and
the guy
also
from
this,
Lost in Space.
But already, we're already getting a bit of ahead. Basically, this is a combination of what happened so far in the MCU. So if you haven't catched up most of the movies previously, I'm sorry for you. You're just gonna have a bad time. And this is an occasion where I don't even want to listen the whole, oh, but this movie should be introductory for newcomers. No, this is clearly a movie that doesn't even try to do that. So.
Well,
I'm
that's
sorry
the
for
thing.
you.
I mean, it's a bit different. It's a bit different to, making a movie adaptation of a TV show where, yes, I do think you should introduce them because they are slightly different mediums. But this one, there's been a clear continuity for the past 10 years.
And not
so
to
if you
mention,
haven't
this
caught
is
up now, then it's kind of your problem if you have an issue with
and
the
not to
lack of
mention-
introduction in this movie.
Yes,
and not to
Yes,
mention,
Deji?
this is the third installment, so it's like that's your own fault.
This is
Yeah.
literally phase 3, and we're still waiting for phase 3 to end.
Alright,
Okay.
before actually starting the movie, might as well very quickly, what each of us, if each of us like the movie or not, basically. Deji.
Alright then.
Yeah, I like the movie. I had fun.
Alright.
I saw it twice, which is something I never do for a movie. So
Well,
let
that
that
says a
speak
lot.
about its quality.
Mm-hmm. Alright then. Dwibs?
Dwibs?
I enjoyed it too, even with some of the stuff in it that you guys know that I don't like about the MCU.
Bathos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Shiroi?
I liked it. I really liked it. I mean, we kind of spoke about it for a while after I watched the movie, but there is one big issue that I did have because I'll bring it up when it becomes relevant, but something very predictable and very irritating happened during that movie.
Oh.
But again, more on that when I get to it.
Personally,
So let's just say I want to drag a certain character through a hedge backwards.
I
Oh,
may be
sorry.
agreeing with you.
Yes.
Sorry, I should elaborate. I don't hate the concept of bathos in general. I just hate it when it's overused.
Don't worry, Dibs. You'll have plenty of opportunities when we talk about the plot
Alright,
to address
for
that.
for me, I enjoyed most of the part, but the elements that ticked me off big time. Not for the reason they were intended to, like for the context of the movie, but more like what they represent on the great scheme of things, the big picture and all that jazz. But more on that later. Jovah?
And finally, me. I overall love this movie. In fact, I felt that this movie did a pretty good job. It's not my favorite Marvel movie for a few reasons holding it back. And yes, I will say this. While overall I enjoy the movie, there are some definite weaknesses to it. And I will say this, there's a certain thing that at the ending that I would have done quite different. Like, I get the reasoning for it, but I could argue that a lot of things could have been done better. And yeah, there are a few kind of wall banger moments for me.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll elaborate more on that later.
For context, my favorite Marvel movies, at least for Phase 3, is Doctor Strange. But most of them...
I really like that movie.
But to be fair, Phase 3
I
is always...
didn't.
You mean Iron Man with magic?
Hold on. But to be fair, for practically almost all of it, Phase 3 has been really solid and great for me.
Yeah.
So there's that at least. Anyway, let's just start because there's a lot of plot threads converging into this.
First off, I must warn you with a spoiler. Hawkeye is not in this movie, despite his actor being credited for such.
Neither Ant-Man.
Yeah, which
But,
is odd. I mean, everyone made a big deal of the film's so big that Renner had to leave Mission Impossible 6 for it.
not just that, it's an Avengers movie and one member of the original team is not even in it. Like, come on, man.
Which kind of clashes
It's
with a
not a
certain
thing like,
theme.
oh, I'm pretending that the cast of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. shows up. No, it's not even that. It's like Hawkeye. It was part of the original team in the movie. Seriously. It's like
Which
he
kind
gets
of
to know
clashes
love.
with something. Yeah,
It's
let's just say that's also going to clash with a certain theme
But
of the.
anyway, if you paid attention enough in all the previous movies, you may realize that at least for now there are several magic stones floating around in the Marvel universe. Each of
The
them
Chaos
in particular. Yes, you mean the Chaos Emeralds? Each of them
These are the
granting a
Infinity
particular
Stones.
power. And each of them with a different color, blah blah blah, they have different function. And basically these are the Infinity Stones. Now, in the original comics, they were like Deji said, pure Chaos Emerald, simple stones. Here they used some of the other Marvel artifacts, like the Cosmic Cube of Red Skull or the Eye of Agamotto of Doctor Strange, and reconverted them in order for the sake of simplicity. I don't mind. I just wish some of them were used in a different way, but
Or
whatever.
some of them were used at all. But
I
we'll
get the
digress on that
intention.
more.
Basically, these are the stones. If you paid also attention in the first Avenger, the bigger scope of Loki that he wanted to do was to conquer all the possibly all the Infinity Stones and give them to the person that was basically his master back then. Said
And his
master
plan, of course,
in the-
involved taking over New York City.
Yes, with the Kitau's aliens. Said master was revealed in the Stinger to be the Titan Thanos, played by Josh Brolin. In case you're wondering, the big
although, funny
brother
enough, he wasn't.
from the Goonies.
I don't think he was played by him in the first movie, though. I think they only cast Brolin later on.
At least for Guardians of the Galaxy, you mean?
He's
Yeah.
talking about, like, that. Funnily, because I guess Thanos really got a nice facelift since his face looks a lot more relaxed.
It still
than
looks
did
like a
in the
purple
first one.
triangle, but whatever.
And how did he manage to go through all that painful cosmetic surgery and team up with Deadpool?
Well, considering the stuff he
that's-
goes through in this movie, Dwibs, let's just say Thanos can take the pain.
Yes.
His face kind of amuses me, and I do not know why.
What
It's
I
because of the
don't,
testicle
He has
chain,
such a
isn't it?
goofy face.
Might as
I
well talk
think.
about briefly, but this is a nitpick from me, so don't take it as an actual criticism because it's not worthy of that. But I kind of mind the fact that Thanos basically drops the helmet almost at the beginning of a movie and never.
Thank
has it back.
you.
I was just about to say that too. It's like, oh, okay, I guess this is a good place to start the movie because it's at the beginning, actually.
Oh yeah, that's right. Let's start with shitting all over for Ragnarok, shall we? Like,
Yeah.
seriously,
Okay.
I get the cold openings, but you made an entire movie practically pointless with this.
Yeah.
Like,
Now, later the directors did say that half the Asgardians
But
made it
that's-
out and
but
Valkyrie
that's
let
the
them, but we
problem.
had
But
to
that's
be
off.
told
But
that.
that's off screen.
Not just
Yeah.
not just that, it's even worse. This is not even stuff like, for example, Motomu Toriyama holding stuff from 13.2 into novels. These are actually the person tied to the movie actually having to tell these details in interviews.
Yeah, I'll admit,
People had to ask them about these things. Otherwise, we would
Tell-
have never told them.
tell me about it. I mean, yeah, this is what I mean when I say that. I love this movie overall, but it has some noticeable flaws. And I get that they couldn't pack in that much stuff, but all the same, though, couldn't you have maybe have at least been more informative with the Asgardians? Basically, we start off the movie where Thor Ragnarok
Left
ended
off,
off with
yeah.
them being loomed over by Thanos' ship. So we're told that half the Asgardians were left alive, but from what we see, everyone except for a few are freaking dead.
Yeah.
Like, murdered right there and then.
Now, okay, I will say this though. Now it makes kind of more sense for the death of the three warriors in for Ragnar because I guess they didn't want them to die at the beginning of this. It's still kind of
Poor
painful for
Thor.
me.
I mean, really, poor Thor, because
You
not
can't
only
catch
that,
a break, yeah.
speaking of not catching a break, who's the first person to die in Infinity War?
Heimdall. Tell me,
The
man,
black
the black
guy.
guy always dies
He
first.
dies first. Now, basically, Heimdall
Well,
is
they-
helping them out.
That probably would have pissed off Deji and Jovah and not got
Not
the
just
film off
that,
like
not
a
just that,
dot.
Jovah, we kind of have to talk something else that happened off screen. Basically,
Yeah.
Thanos boarding the ship of Asgardian kind of shows that he has this gigantic glove, the Infinity Gauntlet, properly named, this golden bling bling glow that has sockets specifically designed for the Infinity Stones to power it up and convey their energy. And we show that he had already one of the stones, the purple one, I think.
The Power Stone.
Power Stone,
Basically, the Power
which-
Stone allows a user to access and manipulate all forms of energy and enhance their physical strength and
If you don't
durability,
remember,
yada yada
if you don't
yada.
remember, this was the thing that Ron the Accuser, I think, was searching in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Peter Quill, Star-Lord, managed to convey its power, and then he gave it to the Nova Corps, which means the entirety of the Nova Corps is kinda dead because of this off-screen.
God dang it, and here we thought they were going to actually add them to the universe.
Not just that, all this teasing for a Nova movie gone to waste now when you think about it.
But who
So
knows?
basically-
Who knows? Maybe they'll pull a Green Lantern, and then one of the last dying Nova will then come to Richard.
Maybe, who knows? For the record, the reason that they didn't show it supposedly was there because they thought it would have it was one of the things they had to cut for time for the sake of not making the movie too long. Even though the
Cut
movie...
It
for
was already
time, it's
long.
2.5 hours
Yeah,
long.
that's my argument. The movie is still it's still long on its own. 10 minutes more.
And
wouldn't have made
and
that much
so
difference.
basically in the first 5 minutes the film does like my most hated film thing ever.
It's a
I
bombardment.
groaned as much as you did, Dwibs. What did you think, Deji and Shiroi?
Deji's bibbed, and as for me, it's not something I particularly noticed, because remember, unlike a lot of people who watched this over a decade,
True.
I processed all this information in 2 years. There's a lot I'm trying to recall as I'm
In case
sitting
you
here.
didn't know, audience, Shira is being kind of educated, quote unquote, on the MCU by Pedro showing her the movies in the most coherent way
And me.
possible.
Culminating in me
the
showing her
order
Black
that is,
Panther.
Yeah.
in the order that is listed for them
Yeah.
to be watched.
And
Basically, she's been up to
how
date.
even better, Pedro skipped for the Dark World because he thought it was
He actually
pointless, but I
skipped the
showed her
Hulk
it
as
anyway.
well.
The problem is that you kind of needed for the Redstone. I forgot. the name.
I did watch Thor: The Dark World. Dwibs showed it to me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
So basically,
yeah.
Thanos comes a calling, but that just as it seems that Loki is about to give him the stone, turns out Loki says the lines that have haunted him to this very day. We have a Hulk, and in comes Hulk ablazing, pummeling Thanos in. But believe it or not,
For 2 minutes.
and then Thanos fights back.
well, that was
Yeah.
kind of expected. I mean, it's the start of the movie, for goodness sake.
No, okay,
True.
but again, these what kind of takes me off is what these will represent later on. Hulk gets
Okay.
mops the floor with him and then tosses it
Yeah.
away. So in one last attempt, Heimdall basically sends Bruce Banner back to Earth using the Bifrost power. But this just means that Thanos mercilessly killed Heimdall after that, or is it? I think. Oh god, I forgot. Corvus Glaive that kills him? I don't remember.
I don't recall, but here's my question, though.
Yeah.
Okay, Heimdall, why couldn't you have transported more than just the Hulk? I mean, you clearly can activate
Like,
that thing
you know,
kind of like a
Thor,
Bluetooth.
y-
Yeah,
like,
Thor or Loki, who has the stone.
yeah. So Loki tries to do his own
teleport the stone
tricking
itself.
diplomacy
Oh,
stick.
okay.
in
It
order
was
to give,
Bifrost that killed Heimdall.
hmm,
I mean,
okay.
oh, no, never mind. It was Thanos
The
that
fakey
killed him.
guards killed him.
Yeah, he
God
just
damn it.
waited for that. Anyway, Loki tries to do his own shtick about tricking by offering the cosmic cube, because he stole it from Asgard during Thor Ragnarok, so he technically has it, and he didn't tell to Thor, which surprises him when he presents it. But Thanos is not one that gets tricked like this, so he promptly freezes Loki and kind of theatrically murders him. Like, he takes his time to enjoy the thing.
What
Now,
a
Alan-
great start to this movie. They kill off everyone's favorite.
Not just
Now,
that,
Alan,
I was
Lo-
expecting that, to be honest.
And I'll admit, Loki is one of the deaths that I'm okay with. Yes, even despite it happening this quickly in it, it makes sense because in a way, it's Loki's culmination of an arc. Like, he's finally done with, tricking his brother, and now he's trying to use his tricks to
But
help.
he cannot escape his sins of the past. That's pretty much it.
And since his actor says he's pretty much done with playing Loki,
Even
yeah.
Thanos lampshades didn't say, no, I don't think he's
Yeah,
gonna come back.
don't worry, guys. Tom Hiddleston were going to have a lovely career as that guy from Kong Skull Island.
Yeah, that's one thing. Comic books are not dictated by actors. Movies kind of are, so bye, Loki.
Anyway, the Thor doesn't really get away. Thanos gets the cosmic cube, promptly smashes it just to get the stone inside it, puts it on the gauntlet, and then detonates the Asgardian ship, leaving Thor to float into space. Charming.
Yeah. He
Now-
was using...
Yeah.
God,
but,
I forget what stone he used to do that.
no, the blue azure stone, the one that was in the cosmic cube.
Oh,
I
right,
think.
the space stone.
The space stone, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to Earth, because thanks to the Bifrost, Bruce Banner manages to land, quote-unquote, on Earth, but where? Into the New York Sancta Sanctorum, where Doctor Strange and Wong are, well, discussing about what to do after the events of the Doctor Strange movie.
No, they were just discussing what to eat.
Oh, that's
And this is
right.
the part where I would-
They mentioned something like Starbucks or something, I think.
Oh,
No,
the Starbucks.
that's
That's for
later,
Name
later.
dropping
that's-
Starbucks.
That's
for
for later. Okay. Now this is the part where I would like to give the movie a very big compliment because this feels like a Star Wars movie, like literally to the point where they even give subtitles for the locations where are, just in case people might be lost, and they even give nice detailed explanations. And let's just say, folks, there's a lot of world hopping in this movie.
And hey, unlike Civil War, the names of the places aren't in giant letters across all the screen.
I
Yeah.
get why they did that. That was so
Anyway,
obnoxious.
Bruce Banner lands, and he promptly has to recover because Doctor Strange doesn't know this guy. Like, he just drops it like that in the middle of his temple.
And then title drop after he has.
Oh yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry,
right.
who?
Because he needs to, Bruce basically needs to warn the others that Thanos is coming and everything, and about what he's about to do. But basically, it's already too late because one of Thanos' ship basically arrives on Earth almost a couple of minutes after Bruce Banner also arrives.
It is interesting that when Bruce Banner comes crashing down, in the original comics, that was supposed to be Silver Surfer.
Yeah,
Mm.
basically,
But
like I
Disney has
mentioned,
not
these
completely gotten Fox yet. So.
like I mentioned, this takes inspiration from the original Infinity Gauntlet story, but changing a lot of things because a lot of the characters that were in that story were not clearly present.
All in due time, Teo. All in due time.
But this is where things,
Assuming Disney actually wins the buyout against Comcast.
this is where things start to converge a bit already, because Tony Stark and Pepper Potts are talking, since they got married at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming, now they're talking about what to do with our life and everything.
Marital issues. Are we going to have a kid? Or can we possibly have a honeymoon without New York City getting attacked? Sorry, honey, New York City's getting attacked.
Yeah, and
Okay.
Tony has to promptly go away. Because this, onion ring, kind of like of spaceship arrives, and out of them drops two major figures. Now,
A giant being and Squidward merged
Yes.
with Voldemort.
now,
And yes, folks, believe it or not, SpongeBob is canon to this universe.
if you
we'll
need,
get to that
if you
soon
need a small
enough.
introduction to these guys, these are part of the Black Order, basically a group of aliens that Thanos has recruited to his
As
cause.
his children.
And are doing his bidding, basically. Specifically,
Oh.
the two members that are now down on Earth are Cole Obsidian, the big guy with the axe hammer, I forgot what it is, and the other is Ebony Maw, a guy that's mostly about, well, in the comics it was mostly about mental tricks. Here they gave him telepathy, so it's a natural evolution of that.
If I can be quite honest, if there's another shortcoming of this movie, it was the children of Thanos. Like,
They were forgettable.
I cannot really remember their names, and some go out
actually,
like
some
jumps
of
more than
them, they
others.
didn't even name them. Some of them are not named in the movie, actually.
The only one that actually sticks out to me is the one that they called Squidward, but I swear looks like Voldemort.
Yeah,
Well,
Ebony
Yeah,
Maw.
that's why I thought I was like, is that Voldemort?
It's like I said,
Yeah.
it's Voldemort merged with Squidward. Okay, folks, time to explain here. Basically, Peter Parker also notices the thing going on
Yeah.
on the school bus. And here, his friend, who is Ned Leeds, thankfully not the Hobgoblin, covers for him, while their bus driver, Stan Lee, has a good old
Yeah.
joke to give. Yeah.
Here's the thing, this is quite possibly one of the most underwhelming Stan Lee's cameo ever. Like,
Yeah.
Well,
I'll admit,
what
I
could
get
they
that maybe
really
it was
do with this one?
intentional after all that has happened, but I don't know. Like,
I'll admit, I thought Stanley's cameo was going to be him doing the final blow to Thanos, but given the ending of this movie, I can see why that's not the
actually,
case.
well,
but
not even that. I was expecting even more like a continuation of the whole thing with the Watchers from Guardians of the Galaxy episode.
oh god,
volume 2.
how cool would it have been to have Stanley's characters from his cameos in past movies all show up?
Yeah, but whatever. The point being, he is just a bus driver that tells, "Hey kids, have you never seen a spaceship before? What are you doing?"
I have an issue with that scene, by the way.
Oh,
Why?
do tell.
Like, Peter kind of sneaks off to be Spider-Man, and not once does
No,
anyone
dude,
like, where the
It's
fuck is
kinda,
Peter?
it's kinda the logic that has been plagued a lot of Spider-Man media. It's kind of like, it's a thing that has been accepted.
You just
at
have
this
to
point.
roll
It's
with
like,
that. at this
driver,
point.
we lost a student off a
Speaking of-
bridge.
Speaking of rolling with stuff, we never did get to see how Peter's aunt deals with figuring out that he's Spider-Man. Oops.
Oops.
That's
Well, there's
That's
too
for
much to do with
Homecoming
right now.
thing.
As like that's the least important. Problem.
But guys, it's okay. We'll find out in Homecoming 2. More on
We will
that
find out
later.
in Homecoming 2, but
Oh,
that's another. That's for the end.
Yeah,
because
I was it, and for some strange reason, I don't know why. I was kind of expecting the bus driver to be someone working at Sony or something.
That would have been funny. So what would they have done?
Kazirai, yes.
Yes.
Kaz Hirai driving the bus.
With his
So
shitty
anyway,
in green.
basically, Peter meets up with Tony
Tony,
Stark,
yeah.
Doctor Strange, Wong, and Bruce Banner, and they're confronted by Obsidian and Ebony Maw, to which Tony Stark, while backing up Strange, who, well, of course the two don't get along initially, well,
I
says
They're
one of
actually
the
same
like
greatest
the
person,
lines
interaction.
which is
ever.
ironic.
The super snark between the two is amazing.
Yeah,
Yes,
like this is
it's-
Bayfos, but actually done right. Like they snark, but they snark at the villains, and it makes sense because they're trying to demoralize them in
Now,
a sense.
the reason these two children of Thanos are here is because they want the Eye of Agamotto, which contains the Time Stone, one of the most powerful ones, the Green Stone.
The one that Doctor Strange used to basically get Dormammu to back off.
Surprisingly enough, Strange is not immediately saying no. He just say, "Oh, why do you want that?" And then he ponders actually a bit, and then say, "Well, no, I needed more, basically."
And then Tony Stark backs up with one of the greatest lines ever. It means get lost, Squidward. You heard right, folks. SpongeBob is officially canon to the MCU. Which probably means Disney's gonna buy Nickelodeon.
But Paramount don't make the movies anymore. How could that?
Anyway.
It's, I'm pretty sure that they're probably gonna buy them eventually, or maybe it's basically their way of saying, yes, Incredible Hulk, despite partially being owned by Paramount, still is
Universal.
owned.
Anyway,
Oh,
big
well,
fight scene, which basically culminates in Wong managing to teleport Cool Obsidian into the Arctic and then severing his head with one of the teleports spells. That's hardcore as fuck. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, Ebony Maw capturing Doctor Strange thanks to his mental tricks, and then retreating to his ship. Iron
See,
Man.
Bruce would
Oh,
have
sorry,
been
go
able
ahead.
to help, but he's having a bit of problems with getting the Hulk of all people to come out.
Oh, yes. Basically, well, it's kind of jumping
Okay,
ahead a bit,
Hulk's
but I might as well get it for now as a problem that I have for a movie. Bruce Banner is quite possibly one of the most wasted characters in the entire movie. Like, no joking. After the initial fight scene, basically Hulk has PTSD and doesn't want to come out. Like, you're kidding me.
Seriously, I mean,
I
this
feel
is the
sorry for all the Hulk fans because when Hulk gets confronted by menace like this, he doesn't go like this like a pussy. He gets angrier and stronger. So
reminder.
I don't want to come out. The big purple man scared
this
me.
just feels to me
Re-
like the writers didn't know what to do with the character and just had to
Or
find a way
what
to
was it?
define it.
Or was
He's
there?
been beaten up just as bad in the past,
Yeah.
so
Or
yeah,
is
it
that-
kind of doesn't.
Or is there some new contract with Universal saying can only be in the film for 5 minutes?
We don't know. That's the problem.
Allow
Go
me
ahead,
to
Jovah.
remind everyone, at the end of Thor Ragnarok, Hulk got beaten by giant Clancy Brown demon guy, and yet he still wanted to fight him. He only came because Thor called for him to come. Like, I
He
mean,
didn't really get beat. He was just tossed off.
Well,
Not
that's
to
the
mention he
thing.
was already recovering from the fight with the wolf. So
yeah, which kind of does raise my thing, though. It's like, well, I mean, okay, the idea of Hulk being scared to come out is interesting, but he never comes back out for the rest of the movie
No.
at all. Like, we gotta wait until Avengers 4, which is weird because trailers clearly showed Hulk helping out in the final fight. Then again, it also showed certain people who weren't there during the final fight helping, so I have no idea what the heck is going on.
trailers always lie,
Oh,
Jovah. Nothing new on the horizon.
It's subversion.
To put it like this, I like the idea of Hulk being scared, and I like most of what they do with it. I will admit, though, it got a bit obnoxious when it was clear it was not gonna get solved by the end of the movie.
Anyway, but basically, yeah, Doctor Strange has been captured, Iron Man goes to chase, and initially Spider-Man as well. Tony kind of finds an excuse to actually give him back, have Peter back, because, you know, Peter cannot breathe in fucking space, so it wouldn't have
So he
been...
gives him the Iron Spider suit.
Basically, the tease that we had at the end of Homecoming makes sense to have.
And now Iron Man officially declares Peter Parker an Avenger.
Yay!
Finally.
After 2 years.
Okay, I have a question about that.
Mhm.
What?
Since you guys are obviously bigger Marvel fans than me,
Go ahead.
Go on.
does Spider-Man really belong in the Avengers? Because I keep
Yes
I
and
keep
no.
hearing-
Basically, in the comics, the Avengers are more like imagine
They roulette.
it's a revolving door. Like
Yeah.
everyone enter and leaves at their command. There was a
The
time when
Aven-
Beast from the X-Men was in the Avengers, so
Let me
No,
put it
no,
like
no.
this.
What I mean by like I hear like some people don't really like the idea that Spider-Man being part of the Avengers.
Nah,
Like,
it's
he
just
doesn't- it
a
seems like he
title.
doesn't belong on it.
Honestly, Spider-Man has been in the Avengers plenty of times. In fact, he's currently considered an Avenger. I mean, okay, now people who don't like the idea of him being in the Avengers, I guess they feel that it kind of does shaft, the ending of his movie Homecoming, where he decided to be, the one who looks out for
I'm
the
talking
little
about
guys.
in general. In general.
Oh, okay. Normally, those are fans who think that Spidey is best kept, down to the level where, he can help everyone, problems big or small, whereas the Avengers are the bigger than life heroes. Even though kind of nowadays, Peter's kind of been everywhere. So at this
Yeah.
point, I'm not even surprised he's an Avenger. Honestly, I'm fine with him being an Avenger because it's not like it even takes up all of his time. He's essentially a part-timer like Batman is for the Justice League.
Anyway, so with that, Iron Man and Spider-Man enters the ship sneakily because they were not detected. Iron Man also has a very brief communication with Pepper, so yeah, their
Which
relationship is
breaks
gonna
up.
have a bump, at least on that.
Yeah, Pepper, I love you.
Yeah. And they confront, well, they not confront, they spy on what's happening, and Ebony Maw is torturing Strange in order to get the item Agamotto to work because it opens accordingly only to his magic commands, basically. So he's trying
Then
to...
they starve.
So Peter has an idea, and I really wonder if this was tied to the fact that Disney is trying his fucking best to buy Fox right now. Because
Let's talk about that.
what he does, he says to Iron Man, has anyone seen Aliens? Basically the second movie in the Alien franchise. So that's exactly what they do. Ebony Maw gets distracted for a second by Iron Man, I think, by Iron Man, yeah. But then Iron Man, instead of firing at him, because otherwise it would have been used Strange as an hostage, fires at the hull of the ship, and the pressure does the rest of the work. Basically, with
Peter
Peter
Parker
holding,
saves Strange from getting
exactly, with
sucked
his
out.
web power.
It's really corny, but I love it.
Oh,
It's also,
trust-
it's also hilarious in hindsight. Considering
trust
we
me,
really
the
forgot
references only
about the
get-
MCU.
Yeah. The references only get better when Peter meets a certain other character. But yeah, we cut from that scene where basically they take the ship, and basically, unfortunately, the ship is kind of sent careening. But back to Bruce Banner, who was left on Earth.
In
See, turns out Stark left
yeah.
his phone.
There you
There's kind of been a thing where, okay, they kind of urged Tony to maybe call up Captain America. Turns out Tony's still a bit iffy with Cap
Yeah,
because
after
of
Well,
Civil
yeah.
War. Yeah.
which is kind of weird considering how he actually allowed Captain America to help break everyone out at the end of Civil War. But I guess to be fair, some things aren't fixed
So, but
completely.
thankfully
Needs
Bruce
must.
manages to
Must.
find that cell phone with Cap's on. But we cut then to, I forgot which country.
Scotland.
Scotland, there you go. Where
Edinburgh,
we
to
see,
be exact.
we see Scarlet Witch and Vision now being in love.
Oh, but it's okay because Scarlet Witch now has an American accent. Apparently, it's explained that
Yeah.
she got rid of her
You
accent.
know, if they wanted to blend in and hide in their surroundings, why didn't she just put on a Scottish accent, considering where they are?
Not just
Well,
that,
okay, to be fair, that's more so the actress not feeling comfortable with the accent that Scarlet
I
Witch had to give.
kinda get the feeling that Scarlet and Vision's relationship has been sped up a bit too much. Like,
Yeah.
Also-
it's fine on its own. It's just that it feels like it wanted to burn all the steps as quick as possible.
Also, I'll be honest, I'm not really a fan of how it just says, "Oh, they're in Scotland." I'm like, Where? Edinburgh, Glasgow,
It is,
Aberdeen?
no, I already
Man,
said it's
you are
Edinburgh
so
to be.
nitpicky, I swear.
Also,
It's Edinburgh to be exact.
Also, Dwibs, it's Scotland. There's like one city and a shit ton of castles in the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
Where
Wait, Dwibs, if we're going by that logic, whenever they jump to New York, they're like, what part of New York are you in? Brooklyn,
Are we
Bronx,
in
Manhattan, Staten Island? And it's like, if you're in Manhattan, where exactly in Manhattan
one thing I was
are you in Harlem?
No, honestly, the one thing I was wondering more is that it's Scotland and it's in the dead of night. Where are all the drunk Celtic and Rangers fans?
Also, where's Harry Potter?
Good point.
Yes,
So-
it's inaccurate. There's not enough bumbling drunks around.
Anyway, yeah,
Speaking
we
of which,
cut to
Shiroi, I'm
the...
guessing Alice enjoyed the homage to Scotland.
She knew exactly where they filmed
Of
that.
course.
Not just the
Edinburgh.
city, she knew exactly where they filmed it.
Because it was in Edinburgh, and apparently they filmed in Glasgow as well.
So basically,
yeah.
Wanda, Maximoff, and Vision are having a lovely night on the stroll. They're talking about maybe doing the hero thing or maybe just run away, fall in love. Unfortunately, then they're attacked by Midnight and Glaive, two other
Basically,
children of
The
Thanos.
female one is Proxima Midnight, this blue-skinned warrior with very skilled with the lance, and the other is Corvus Glaive. He's a skinny-looking grey alien, which has basically regenerative abilities.
Yeah, thing about Midnight, she's clearly just the one who's meant to go up against every female character in this
Yeah,
movie.
it's
I'm not
pretty
even kidding.
obvious. So the
Whereas
goal...
Glaive is, he's gonna be the martyr.
Yeah, Corvus Glaive has as a step designed specifically to try and taking the Soul Stone. I think
No,
it's
Mind
not,
Stone.
No, it's the Mind Stone. Sorry, the Mind Stone, which function, remember, as the central core program of Vision. In case you don't remember Age of Ultron, it was built exactly with that.
Don't worry, I'm sure Claw remembers Age of Ultron all too well.
Yes. So Corvus is about to get it. You'll see it's about to get extracted when Cap and Black Widow and Falcon shows up to save the day with a super kick-ass reprise of the Avengers theme, which is amazing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, let's
Mhm.
talk about the soundtrack. This
The
is
music
hands
in this
down-
movie is amazing.
See,
Yeah,
this part of a
You
reason
got
that
Alan
this is the
Silvestri
best
back.
Oh yeah, Alvin Silvestri, he remixes some of his best tunes, and even greater, they bring back themes from all the past Marvel movies,
Yeah.
pretty much. So yeah, needless to say, this was kind of a shoo-in for best soundtrack yet. Also, Sam Wilson is with them, Falcon.
Yeah, Falcon.
Although here's the
Who?
thing, Captain America is now just Steve.
And he has
Okay,
this
here's a
beard, majestic beard.
Are they taking the WWE approach and removing their last names now? What the
Yeah.
hell?
Here's another thing. If you're expecting Captain America, sorry, he never wears the costume
He's,
in this
he's
one.
punished. Well, he has the shield at least, so
He needs.
he has a
the
shield.
eye patch.
Jovah. That's
Yeah.
the
He needs a-
article.
Yeah, it's weird. Captain America is barely in that movie.
What, Infinity War?
Yeah. Like he's
Oh.
there, but he doesn't have much to do. He's just
I'd argue the same thing for Black Widow.
This is, of course, one of the things when it comes to making a movie
Yeah.
with this much, and it becomes all the more clear by the ending that this movie is, well, if I say it now, it'll give it away, but again, I'll just say this, stepping stone. That's all I'm going to say for now.
Not just
Anyway,
that,
Before
I-
we move
I-
on, before we Oh.
Yeah, go ahead, Shiroi.
Go on.
I'll say
I was
this.
gonna say before we move on from that, it took me a while because for a while I was wondering where the hell Captain America was while I was watching this
Yeah.
movie, and they kept saying Cap, and I was like, wait, oh, like he's been here this entire time. I just did not recognize him with all that bloody facial hair.
You're not
I
alone,
was watching it,
Shiroi.
I was like,
Weird.
who the heck is this guy? And it's like, oh, it's Captain America.
Chris
Shit.
Evans has come a long way since the Fantastic
Yeah.
Four movies.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize him at all.
You know, it's funny you mention that, Shiroi, because some people in my theater were a bit confused by that. Like, okay, I can get why they changed Captain America and Black Widow visually because, of course, they're going into hiding. I guess maybe they could have made them a bit more recognizable. I mean, for some reason, Black Widow went with the whole blonde look like, yes, girl, that'll totally throw them off. No one will ever recognize Scarlett Johansson.
Also, Black Widow has yet another haircut with different colors. Seriously, it's
And
like a
yet
meme
for
at this point.
And yet, for some reason, Falcon looks exactly the same. So it's like, oh, those two. Guess Wilson will stay there.
because
We
no
should dye
one
his hair
knows
like a rainbow
Falcon.
next time.
Well, Deji, people in the comics know him now because he's the current Captain America.
No,
but
no,
that's
no,
not
no, I'm talking
right.
about in the grand scheme of things. Like more people know who Black Widow and Captain
America are because they're part of the Avengers.
True. So anyway, we
Yeah,
have a
they
pretty awesome
saved.
fight scene in the subway between them. Basically, they managed to fend Midnight off, and Clive is killed by. God, who killed him? Black Widow, I think.
Yeah, I think either Black Widow or Vision himself. Basically, gets impaled.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It was Black Widow who kills him.
Anyway, after that,
Midnight
basically,
swears vengeance.
yeah,
and
and
then
she
retreats.
talks off with the body of Corvus. So basically, the five Avengers, well, some of them ex-Avengers, retreats to a building in order to discuss what to do when Cap receives the actual call of where to go. The problem is the events of Civil War still are lingering on them, so we get a nice, charming cameo from William Hurt playing General Talbot Ross, which I really didn't get for this movie, because I get that that's the character of Talbot Ross, being the stupid American general that doesn't see common sense and everything, but in this movie is borderline idiotic.
Dude, the world is being threatened by a being you don't know. The Avengers were the ones who saved you in the first Avengers movie, and his first order to Rhodes, who, yes, did survive Civil War despite what Civil War 2 will have you think. I'm talking about that stupid comic where they kill off War Machine. Rhodes says, okay, I'll do it. Turns off the communications with Thunderbolt Ross, and then says, yeah, we're not going to do it. Welcome back, guys.
What is that? We never see after that Ross, so it's pretty much clear that that subplot was just there for a laugh.
Who knows, Teo? Maybe Frost may be a certain other place.
Sure, totally.
But more on that later. So
Why he
basically,
becomes Red Hulk? Oh no.
Totally.
Oh. So basically, the heroes discuss what to do with Vision because he has the Mind Stone.
And
The
Banner
sensible thing
explains the
to
situation
do,
to everyone else, yeah.
the sensible thing to do, everyone agrees, is basically waste Vision, destroy the Mind Stone. I mean, granted, they could just destroy the Mind Stone, but the Mind Stone is what's
Even Vision
powering
himself
Vision and
agrees
making
with
him
that,
himself.
because he genuinely thinks that's the best course of action to do. But obviously, some of them actually oppose this because it's a life.
Yeah, I mean, I get that Scarlet Witch is still reeling from the death of her brother, which I honestly do not care for. But
Wait,
that's a problem with
wait,
Avengers Age of Ultron.
hang on. Wait, she had a dead brother?
Yeah, Quicksilver. I
It's
don't
almost
blame
like
you for
Dwibs,
forgetting
couldn't
him.
see that coming, but whatever.
Yeah, the X-Men. Moving on.
Yeah. Basically, though, so they all agreed to take him to one of the few minds that is actually even smarter than Stark.
And where would that be?
Wakanda! Da, 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 da. But more on Wakanda later, because now we cut to the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, and I mean, during all of these, the Guardians of the Galaxy are just, well, for lack of a better term, fucking around. We're basically discussing where to get more money next. The problem is that, similar to Star Wars, they essentially bumps into the breeze where there shouldn't be. So everyone is surprised about that, when essentially Thor splatters on their windshield like a bug.
I'll admit, this is where one of the Bathos moments, basically humor mixed with, an unfitting tone of seriousness comes in, because basically they're joking around, and then, dead bodies all around, and they still even crack a joke during that. That felt a bit...
Yeah, man, like, there's dead bodies all around you.
Infinity War does not have as many Bathos moments as, some of the lesser well-done MCU films, I'm looking at you, Iron Man 2, have. But still, though, they are there. Thankfully, though, they don't overshadow the good of this movie this time.
So, because
yeah.
Thor can survive in space, yes, he gets rescued on board of the
And he
Guardian ship.
conveniently tells them, Thanos killed half my people. And I'm like, half your people.
What about the other half? And I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure Thanos would just pick half
were
of
on
them up and
holiday,
carry
Dwibs.
them
They
off.
were on holiday
Also,
in
I
another
kind of
galaxy.
interpreted that the wrong way, considering the survivors of Asgard were very few already. So it take, half the people died during the Ragnarok, and instead half died here. So
Yeah, that's kind of a thing. We're kind of told and hinted at here that Thanos is all about half and half. Like, he'll kill half of a civilization. More on his reasoning later, but yeah, like Teo said, it means, so Thanos, I guess you didn't know about Ragnarok kind of laying waste to the Asgardians. I mean, granted,
even though
I
you
guess we
should
can
know
assume
about
that they
this, but
somehow...
whatever.
I guess we can assume that they somehow all survived except for those that got killed on screen, but even still...
that's fine. I didn't like Thor Ragnarok anyway.
Ah,
So-
screw you! That movie is in my top 5.
So
That movie's great.
The movie's great, but it does have
wait,
its
to get on
flaws.
a quick side note, I showed my cousin that movie a few weeks ago, and he didn't know anything about it. And when he saw the Hulk for the first time, he was like, "What?"
Yeah.
That
Well, the
reaction-
Hulk's one of the most recognizable characters, even if you aren't familiar with the comics.
It's like I said,
No,
guys.
no, no,
Thor
no.
Ragnarok is
No,
the best Hulk movie that we have, and
No,
that's
he
it.
didn't know that. He didn't know anything about Thor Ragnarok, so he was watching into it blind.
Okay. Anyway, though, back to the
Yeah.
plot.
After learning about what happened with the Guardians and the fact of the stones where essentially shit got real, the Guardians kind of have a mini fallout and they decide to split. Thor wants to get basically a new Mjolnir in order to something that can fight Thanos and actually give his power back, because Mjolnir was kind of like pulverized by Hela in Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah.
And Rocket is very fond of the idea, so Rocket and Groot go with Thor, while the other Guardians instead will pay a visit to the Collector, which, in case you don't remember, he has the Red Stone, the Reality Stone. So,
However, before we get to that area, though,
Yeah.
Gamora and Quill have a certain talk.
Oh,
Basically,
right.
Gamora has Quill promise her that if Thanos gets a hold of him, he will kill her
Her.
because Gamora
Has a
knows the
secret.
location and knows a few secrets here and there, which does lead to, admittedly, a very funny scene with Drax, who manages to master the art of invisibility
I understand the
before
joke.
it kind of went on a bit too long.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I understand the joke, but I honestly think it lasted just a bit too long.
Yeah.
Also, before we move on from this scene as well, I'd like to point out Star-Lord's attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Star-Lord in his
Towards
movie is
Thor. That's
very...
gonna come up again. Oh, go ahead.
Star-Lord in his movie is very brash. Like, I get you just
More
killed...
so than usual.
Not just that, I get you just killed your father, okay, but that doesn't mean you have to be a jackass over everything.
Like, it's
Maybe-
not
Yeah,
something
so he
that-
just ends up having a petty dick measuring contest with Thor.
Oh,
Like,
Maybe-
So
that's right.
Maybe
for-
Chris-
oh, sorry.
Maybe Chris Pratt got his role confused with his role in Jurassic World.
and
You know-
unfortunately, that is going to leave quite a big mark on this movie later on.
Yeah, you know,
Anyway,
Quill, it says something when Thor, the guy who pretty much was the god of bragging rights, acts more mature than you, and he lost not only his brother, but he had to kill his sister, lost his father, and his mother got murdered by his own brother's people.
Anyway, in case you're wondering two things. First, James Gunn actually was kind of like a consultant, I think, for all the scenes involving the Guardians of the Galaxy, so that's also why they're most in character, despite being in an environment that should not be their own. Second, if you paid attention, Groot is now in his angsty teenage phase, so he's constantly
I
around with
agree.
Tiger Electronic knockoff, pretty much. And with Rocket constantly telling, pull that thing off. But
Oh yeah, I will say this,
Streak.
Rock. Okay, for as much as Quill gets messed up, Rocket is quite possibly at his best in this movie. I will say.
More like because he finally got to that development thanks to
Thor of all people.
not just that. In the previous Guardians of the Galaxy movie, he had development thanks to, oh god, I forgot his name, Yondu's brief voyage that they had with him. But anyway, there you go. The group splits in two. First, I think we cut to Quill and Quill, Drax, Mantis, and Gamora going to nowhere, where supposedly the Collector is. But the scene is already a mess where we get there. Everything is
Because we have a weird flashback coming out of nowhere.
Oh, that's right. It's time to finally explain how Gamora became a child of Thanos.
Okay, we
They
haven't
kind
go
of
ahead.
jumped to that really quickly to
Yeah.
the point where
We haven't
it's
talked
slightly
much
dull.
about Thanos. I will say this: Thanos is definitely one of the best villains of the MCU. I will say this: so looking back, the way his backstory is told is like I'm guessing Shira was about to say a bit jumped into.
Yeah,
I was
it was hard to tell. It was hard to tell whether it was a flashback or we were cutting to a different scene in present day.
Yeah.
It wasn't very clear on that. It was obviously a flashback around, you know, you get to around the halfway point of it, I'd say. But yeah, it was at first it was just kind of like, oh, what even is this at the moment?
And speaking of which, in the flashback, Thanos is in his armor. We almost forgot to talk about that complaint that we brought up in the first place. Yeah.
Thanos says he had left only at the very beginning of the movie. Then he pulls it off on this Guardian ship and forgets it there, pretty much.
Not just that, he also takes off a lot of vital armor, and I'm sorry, I get that some people think he looks silly in it, but one, I thought it looked cool, and then two, Thanos, you're trying to do the ultimate plan. Maybe wearing the protection would help. Like, I have no idea why he discards the armor. Like, I hate to say it, but that's what the villain of Highlander the Source did.
The Source, yeah. But the thing is that Thanos does not have super speed anyway, so I don't know.
I mean, I never got why he doesn't put the armor back on. Like, I could get if it got broken and then he's like just powering through, but he just discards it.
Anyway, there you go, they get to nowhere, and in the rubbles they see Thanos pretty much threatening the Collector into giving to him the Reality Stone, because if he doesn't comply, he gets killed. So the Guardians have to quickly formulate a plan in order to actually get onto Thanos and avoid having the Collector be killed and give away the stone. And
of course, Drax being Drax,
yeah, he
nearly
charges
ends
in knives blazing because
he ruins everything.
Actually, surprisingly, despite Drax, the plan manages to work. Gamora goes in for the kill, stabs Thanos. He goes to daughter, lies down and dies, and then the illusion. And turns out Thanos already had the reality.
And in case you know, the Reality Stone lets you do whatever you want, pretty much. You can alter reality in condensed space, modify the shape of matter, which Thanos demonstrates very greatly, because we get some body horror moment with Mantis and Drax. That's creepy as shit.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have ourselves the Phantom Ruby from Sonic Forces.
Because holy shit, I wasn't expecting that in a movie targeted mostly for teenagers.
Yeah.
But the thing is, there was actually a small child behind me in the theater. So
oh yeah, there were kids of all ages in my theater as well.
Mine cinema was settled.
Yeah, it says something that at a matinee of all things, my theater was packed.
Anyway.
Mine was too, yeah.
Anyway, there you go. Thanos basically trolls the Guardians and just says to them, "Fuck you! I already got what I want," which ties to me one other major problem with that movie. The Reality Stone is clearly overpowered, but Thanos doesn't use it much. Why? Because it will be basically a game breaker. It will mean that any adversary that he has will stand no chance. So
why didn't Thanos just manipulate everything so that they'd all shoot themselves?
Or just that, or just does like we did with Drax and Mantis, and then turns into flying spaghetti.
You have to wait for the climax, guys. Come on.
Yeah, okay. This is admittedly an issue I do have. While Thanos is a great villain, it's clear that I think that they should have maybe rearranged the order of which he actually gets some of these stones. Because if I'm going to say this, Reality should have either been the last one or the second to last one.
Yeah.
Because, it's funny, even in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, the Reality Stone is quite possibly the most broken of the gems.
Yeah.
But, yeah, basically, though, like Teo said, the Reality Stone is essentially broken. So, basically, Thanos grabs up Gamora because she held a secret, but Quill is struggling and trying to keep his promise to her. Thanos pretty much taunts Quill in his face, saying, "Oh, what a shucks.
You don't count so well."
And then
I triple dare you.
And then Quill actually does try to kill her with bubbles.
Yeah, Thanos is a weird Thanos has a weird sense of humor in this movie. I wasn't expecting him.
I actually like it.
If I were Thanos, I'd have him do like that scene in Ballistic where the bullet comes out of the other end and it kills Quill.
Although, let me remind you guys, in the same movie that officially confirmed that SpongeBob is canon, the villain uses bubbles quite frequently.
Oh, apparently that's a reference to Marvel vs. Capcom. One of his attacks that he could do.
No, actually no.
The
That's
original Marvel.
that's something that happens later, Deji. Don't worry, I'll mention it when it
I
happens.
actually do like.
like the bubbles he does.
No.
Oh right.
Like apparently that's one of his attacks in Marvel vs.
Not
Capcom.
I actually
I
do like his sense of humor. Though,
I
have
think
to say.
2 or something like
That
that.
goes to show Shiri the fact that the character has several layers. He's not just a mindless monster. He has some sort of humanity into him. He's just very convinced on his opinion, and he will impose onto your face no matter what you fucking say. So
You know what's funny
Well,
is like,
I did hear in the comics that he's kind of flat in terms of character.
I wouldn't
Yes
say
and
he's bad.
no.
Depends on the writer, but essentially in the comic story, most of his stuff is that he's motivated because he wants to bone Death, who is a skeleton lady.
Basically,
I mean, to be
Thanos,
No, I am aware of this.
Thanos is in the comics. He's called the Mad Titan of Death. That's because
Who has a helicopter?
yes, that's because he's quasi immortal. He cannot die properly. Thus, he has sort of toxic relationship with Mistress Death herself, and one of the original events for him was actually in the name of his love, basically destroy as much as people as he could to appease Death herself. Here he's getting ready rolling into another thing, but we're gonna get in a second, because after trolling like this, Thanos basically takes Gamora and just leaves, and since he's generous, I guess he just leaves. He recomposes Mantis and Drax into the original state.
To be fair, apparently the effect of the Reality Stone is like, oh, the wielder of the Reality Stone has to be in enough proximity. Once he leaves, then basically the effects are undone.
All right then.
Oh, you know what's funny though? Like, after Cool actually does go through with trying to shoot Gamora, Thanos basically goes, "Huh? Well, you actually would. I gotta say, Gamora, you actually picked a nice mate. I'd totally let you do it if, well, you know I didn't need you." It's like Thanos is essentially going the equivalent of a dad who's saying, "You know what, honey? This kid is okay." You know, that's another layer of Thanos. He still is a dad of sorts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
What-
watching
what
that
have you-
scene,
what have you gone
and I
up to?
actually said,
Yes, Roy, you said?
I know, I said when I was in the cinema, I actually said, I was like, well, this is the most awkward father-boyfriend talk I've ever seen in my
Yes.
life.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So where are you up to?
Basically, now let's talk about that flashback. See, it turns out
No,
Thanos
hang
came.
on a second. Where Dwibs is asking where we are in this.
Oh, basically, Dwibs, we're after the point where Thanos, captures Gamora.
And gets the Reality Stone.
Now let's talk about
okay.
that flashback. Essentially, Thanos gunned down half of Gamora's village. Like, literally, it's shown to the audience. On one side, they're dead. On the other, they're alive. And he kind of took Gamora into his ranks when she was a little kid.
Conveniently not
And-
showing her
yeah.
the carnage behind her.
It's gonna suck if you were standing on that one half.
And
I mean,
so we cut to the present, and it turns out Gamora's village is not destroyed, but actually thriving. Better than ever. Yeah, Thanos gives her an update. Basically, it turns out Thanos' tactic is that, overpopulation is kind of terrible, in that it
Because
can
there are
kind of
limited
drown out resources and whatnot.
in the matter of the universe, yeah.
The scary thing is that so far his tactic has worked with every country or planet he's come to in demising F. In fact, that's partially why he let Loki initially do his thing. But when all the plans involving Loki and Ultron failed, that's when Thanos decided, all right, I'll do it myself. We
Yeah.
finally get what that means
if
now.
you want something done right, you got to do it.
So basically,
yeah.
No,
that's,
actually that's a lie. What you meant by that was, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself and hire 4 random people to help you.
Oops.
Anyway,
Random.
we're gonna get a bit more elaboration on that. For now, basically back on Thanos' ship, Gamora is get prisoner there, which raises me another point. Gamora doesn't want to give away the secret that she's holding, and has pretty much made clear on Peter that of Quill, that she will prefer to die before giving the secret. So why doesn't she try to commit suicide then? Like, seriously.
About that.
It's not-
Anyway, though,
it's not
Fan-
even
I don't know.
It's not even a difficult
mean-
thing. You can easily self-snap your neck if you're
she later even tries to commit suicide, but well, I guess to be fair, he
Remember,
does have a
Thanos-
certain
Thanos has
skill
got-
for that.
Thanos has got the reality stone.
But
He
that's
could
the
like,
problem. There are
he could. If she tried to hang herself, he'd replace the rope with licorice
But
or
that's
something.
that's the problem, Dwibs. Basically, we get a scene almost immediately after that shows that Thanos is visiting her in her cell, meaning that she has been spending a lot of time there alone on her own.
Not
I'm
to
sorry.
mention the fact that she clearly doesn't have a problem with dying because she asks someone to kill her if this
Yeah.
were to happen.
But turns out Thanos has her adoptive sister Nebula.
Yeah, sadly,
being
that plot
tortured.
point from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 didn't went so well, unfortunately.
Yeah. Basically, Nebula tried to kill Thanos.
And Thanos, in all his generosity, is torturing her with some robot android cyborg body horror. Yay, charming.
Yeah.
Yay!
So this is
Lovely.
what gets Gamora to tell him the location of the Soul Stone.
Theo,
Yes.
what's worse, being stuck in 1940s New York with your boyfriend, or being pulled apart by a robot?
Fuck Moffat.
Oh,
What are you referencing?
Doctor Who.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, basically, they travel to a planet, Vormir, where, of all the people, the Keeper of the Soul Stone is flipping Red Skull.
Yeah, this
Oh,
kind of
Not,
gets...
yeah, that time not played by Hugo Weaving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, turns out, at the end of the first Captain America movie, Red Skull kinda disappeared. It was implied that he just died and went up and died, but no, he actually survived and ended up on this place, and he said, supposedly, forcing to be guarding the Soul Stone. Again, my headcanon is that he just didn't know how to get his ass away.
My guess, yeah, I'll be
So
quite honest.
my biggest issue is that really you could get William Hurt in for 5 minutes, but not Hugo Weaving.
Wasn't he
Apparently,
busy with
Hugo Weaving
something
didn't
else?
like the role.
Well, he doesn't like any. Well, he doesn't like. It's like he doesn't like any role.
Didn't stop him from coming back for the Hobbit, though. But whatever.
He came back for Transformers.
Maybe
Well,
he
he
has
left.
shit
He
takes
left.
out
Well,
of
he
it.
left after. He left after 3.
We are digressing. Basically,
Anyway, yeah.
Red Skull is the guardian of the Soul Stone, and he tells Thanos, oh, no, in order to get the Soul Stone, it's not really easy. You need to kill someone, and that someone has to be the person who you love the most. At that moment, I started cringing to no end for so many
The
reasons.
penny dropped.
Not just that. First of all, I knew exactly where the scene was going, and it was
Same.
but it was
Same.
painful, still painful nonetheless. Second, why the fuck are you trusting me? Try to sacrifice Red Skull first and see what happens. Like seriously, we
Yeah.
was covering his ass.
Yeah,
with
yeah.
that.
Well, you know, when Red Skull said those tears aren't for him, he was talking about for me, because Thanos actually loved that actor.
Okay. You know, that's another good point to bring up
I'm
about
so
this
mad.
film.
Yeah.
This film is overall very good, but I will admit it has a lot of predictable moments. And being predictable is not initially a bad thing, but there are moments like this where I can see it coming minutes
and it's
before
not just the
anyone else
thing. The
does.
scene hammers you in your face what's gonna happen because
It's like-
Gamora spends like 2 minutes straight laughing in the face of Thanos and say, "Ah, no, it's clear that you cannot kill anyone. It's not like you have a figure that you consider a daughter right next to you that it's possible that you
It's like,
actually."
oh,
Oh,
really?
wait.
You're gonna cry
It-
now?
It's like I was like, okay, Gamora, this guy took you in. Okay, granted, yes, he treats
He's kind of
Nebula.
a tyrant. I can understand why she's being a bit,
Well,
on it.
Yeah,
Just
but
that-
considering how he calls these guys his children.
Granted, he treats Nebula like, well, the way he treats Nebula, so I guess I can see why she might think that he doesn't love her, but, girl, Thanos gave you a personal talking to. He has favored you, and notice how he has never actually tried to torture you. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
either he's trying to coddle you, or he
to
is
use
just that
other
insane.
people to convince you. There you go.
Now, okay, the idea that, it's not truly love, but a twisted sense where he believes it's love, or he actually does love her, either way, that is another bad I do like about Thanos' character, because, it's not every day we see the villain having to suffer as much as the heroes to achieve his goals.
That's another thing, Jovah. When you really get down to it, and see a thing that most people pointed out, Thanos is kind of like the
Thanos.
protagonist of the movie. Like,
Yep.
no ifs and buts, and
Well,
everyone else
yeah, I
are the
kinda get
real
that.
villains stopping him from doing what he considers the right thing.
This is
Once
kind of
again,
weird.
I am being attacked for presenting new ideas.
Yeah, it's like basically Thanos does a trend that has kind of been a running thing with Phase 3 villains. You know, villains with uber good intentions, except for Zemo. Zemo was just
A prick.
insane.
No,
But yeah.
Zemo's like, I get where he was coming from, but it's like, okay, so at the cost of getting revenge because they took away your family, what you're
While
planning
saving
on
other
doing
people.
is killing other innocent people. Oh, to prove your point. Doesn't that kind of make you come off as an asshole?
Yeah, basically, with Hela, it's about a family. With Killmonger, well, just sum it up because I've said it loads of times before. Killmonger is like the ultimate MCU villain because his intentions are incredibly good. The problem is his execution.
Even the villain of Doctor Strange, I keep forgetting what it's called. Basically,
God, I forget him.
wanted Dormammu to rule for the sake of humanity, not being able to suffer anymore. Basically,
Yeah.
Nah, it was poorly done. I'm sorry.
well, it was still poorly done, but I understand the idea behind it nonetheless.
I don't.
I agree
It,
with-
it was more like, oh, I was lied to the master. Screw you.
I agree with I agree with both of you. It may not have been done the best, but it still did shine through. Thanos is like a culmination of both. Granted, I still think Killmonger's a bit better because Killmonger's is trying to end racism. Thanos is not sugarcoating it in any way. Like Killmonger was like, if they get in our way, we kill him. Thanos is like, no, we kill him. Like, doesn't matter who's in our way, just random. Pretty much a lottery shot. Half will live, half will die. Doesn't matter
again,
how rich
we'll
or
elaborate
useful you
again in
are.
a second
But
because it will
he's
explain.
more concerned. He's more concerned about the state of the world, not so much the
People
who
around it.
lives
Oh,
and who
not
dies.
just the state of the world.
Like, as long
Troy,
as
that's-
half die, he doesn't give a shit.
Not just the state of the world, Troy. The state of basically everything in the dimension.
Yeah, and so basically, Thanos promptly gets Gamora and tosses her out of a cliff because that's
Ed.
the only person he truly loves.
I have to
And
say,
that's
I really did actually like that scene, going back to the
Yeah.
humanity and Thanos thing, but it was predictable as shit because as soon as Red Skull dropped the ball, it's like, oh yeah, it has to be someone you love. I was just like,
How
well,
many people
bye-bye,
around
Gamora.
do you see?
It's like, bye-bye.
no.
Yeah.
I'm secretly married to Red Skull.
But
Figo.
then we get a trippy
weird
sequence.
scene.
No, every actor whose character gets killed off, and I'm wondering, well, now what are they gonna do?
Anyway,
we'll
hold on,
talk
hold
about
on,
that
Dwibs,
later.
hold on, Dwibs, on that. But basically, we get this trippy sequence where Thanos talks to an infant Gamora, and he just wakes up with a Soul Stone in the gauntlet.
Calling it now, Gamora is inside the Soul
Actually,
Stone.
they confirmed it in one of those interviews, yes.
I'll
So
talk more about that
technically,
later.
she's-
Okay.
Basically, the idea is that the Soul Stone is powered by the person that you sacrificed.
Which is an
supposedly.
interesting concept, but kind of leaves an easy way for her to come back to life.
Exactly.
But
Uh,
anyway,
Wait,
okay, before
Really? I wasn't aware of any of this, in which case, then if they do bring her back, then I now hate that scene because it was a complete
Get
waste
used to
of
it,
time
Shiroi.
and
That's
Welcome.
false
Get
emotion.
used to it, Shiroi. That's gonna be my sentiment before we're ending the movie.
oh, Shiroi, wait
Thank
till we
you for taking a scene I love and destroying it in a matter of seconds.
Now,
Thank
granted,
you.
granted, we don't know what they're actually going to do that, but
But considering how comic books usually work, I mean, they're basically magical
Not
girls.
just
They are
that,
coming
Not
back.
just that,
You're
I'm,
right, sure.
I'm slightly anticipating things, but guys, we have a Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 planned for 2 or 3 years from now, and
You
Gamora's
see
act
that,
is easy in
and,
that.
and that's something I honestly want to get to once we reach the end.
Yeah,
So
we
let's
will
don't worry,
let's
Des,
just
Let's
continue.
just continue.
Yeah.
So
Now, before
Thanos
we
is
go to the
getting-
next
so
scene,
that-
there's
that's
one
a
thing-
problem.
oh, go on.
Thanos is getting more powerful with each stone he acquires, so it's becoming increasingly difficult to beat.
does he
So-
ever use the Soul Stone actually? Because
Yes,
basically this.
yes, Jovah, I do believe.
Oh, he does.
I do believe
Basically-
that's what
Honestly,
happens at the end.
I've forgotten. What does that stone do?
The Soul Stone basically allows the user to steal, control, and manipulate and alter living and dead souls. The Soul Stone
Basically,
is also
bioorganic matter.
basically
So,
it can allow you to resurrect if need be.
So,
Well,
so
and also alter the dead.
So hang on. So later on, why didn't he just use the soul to make all the good guys kill themselves or each other?
Well,
You
okay,
mean
okay.
the
okay.
Mind Stone?
To be fair, Dwibs, that's not part of Thanos' mentality. He only kills what he feels is necessary to kill.
Anyway,
Well,
basically,
but a bunch of people tried to stop him. I think they'd be a bit necessary.
He doesn't really care about that. Okay, now one thing I also want to bring up, though, I thought, okay, after that, Red Skull just disappeared. And I'll admit, I kind of thought, hey, maybe Red Skull's going to come back with Thanos to maybe try and get some vengeance.
no,
It's
but
like,
that's a problem. Apparently, he's now a neutral guy. Like, he doesn't care about being a Nazi anymore, or something.
which is a shame because I thought it was a missed opportunity. It's like, well, I thought, okay, now Red Skull's going to come back, but
Not just that,
no,
you
he's
think, you
just...
think that he has cultivated his vengeance against Cap for all these things that he has been tortured because of him, but no. I guess he
I mean,
chilled out being alone all this time.
Yeah, I mean,
And not
unless
to
he
mention,
shows
he
up...
he can't get the Soul Stone. He's trapped there forever.
mhm.
But
Anyway,
he-
let's just
whatever.
continue. For Rocket Raccoon and Groot reach what essentially is a gigantic forge, where supposedly every single weapon of the Asgardians has been created. So that's the perfect place to make a new Mjolnir, because it's powered by a star itself. It's like a gigantic stewing brewing stew. Here's the problem. Thanos has been there already some time before, a lot of time before, and he has frozen the star. Like, I don't even know how. Because he did not have a gem at that point.
See, it turns out...
Are we up to Peter Dinklage now?
Oh,
Yes.
we're getting there, Dwibs. Basically, it turns out this is where the Gauntlet of Thanos was made. They even see a mold there. And it was made by a giant among giants. The biggest man in this movie, Peter Dinklage.
Peter Dinklage, which is clearly him in a gigantic suit. So
One moment. Was that whole thing with Thanos freezing the star? Was that supposed to happen
Oh.
in time with this movie?
yes and no. Basically, supposedly
Yeah.
this is where Thanos got the Infinity Gauntlet. Where
Okay.
Peter Dinklage's character explains,
basically-
he came here.
No, in which case, I was just questioning whether this is something that was supposed to happen during the movie, but
No,
off
it's
screen.
something
But
that-
if it was
it's
supposed to
something
happen
that
before, then I'm fine.
It's actually
I'm
something
fine.
that has happened before the first Avengers, even, because we saw Thanos with the Gauntlet ever since. So
Mhm.
So,
Although he
so
picks
basically,
up the Gauntlet truly at the end of Age of Ultron.
so basically, Trask somehow escaped prison and
now he's a
went
blacksmith.
went
Yes.
to space.
So basically, Thanos came there sometime before those events that we mentioned, and he pretty much gently, like he always does, asked them to forge something that will contain and channel the power of the stones. There were some
Problem
prototypes,
is-
but the dwarves were not really keen to cooperate. However, this character actually said, "Dude, let's just do what he says, so that he gets away and he just leaves us be." Problem is, as soon as the gauntlet was completed, Thanos just killed everyone else and froze the star for the sake of not letting them create something that would stop him. And as a special
Oh.
punishment, Peter Dinklage has his arms completely frozen in solid metal.
Yep, he said, your hands belong to me now.
Charming.
And he meant it. So that's going to make forging it a bit of an issue.
But
Thankfully, though-
that's what we're gonna stop for, but we're gonna come back on that later. For now...
Let's go back to Peter, Strange, and Stark.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's because the Guardians, basically what's left of the Guardians, actually reach the planet of Titan at the same
Which-
time, where the ship that contained Ebony Maw, so that now has Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, and Iron Man, basically crashing down onto it by accident. So we are in
That's
these
why the
two
Guardians
teams
are here.
meeting.
Yeah, that's why the Guardians are here. Nebula managed to escape captivity and told them to meet her at Thanos' destroyed homeworld.
Yes. Yeah, Titan is surprising enough Thanos' destroyer, like Jovah mentioned.
And what was it destroyed by? Overpopulation. The very thing that fuels Thanos' hatred of the thing.
At first, we have the two teams fighting each other because they don't know each other, so they kind of need to, know each other better a bit. But quickly they...
Typical crossover cliche.
They kind of
Yeah.
get over that. A
I
bit
love how they
quickly,
have
so which is
Spider-Man
good.
go up first against Mantis because insect versus insect, and then Spider-Man versus Star-Lord because Peter Parker versus Peter Quill.
Yes.
Speaking of which, Peter Parker and Peter Quill then spout off a lot of trivia because Quill's also a fan of some of them old movies.
Yeah, like Footloose for some reason.
Is it still the greatest movie of all time?
It
Like,
never
this is
was.
one of the few times where I
You son
felt
of a
like,
bitch!
God dang it. This is one of the few times where I feel like I needed an encyclopedia, not for comics, but for music and movie
80s
trivia. of all
trivia.
things. It's like it was glorious and all. So basically, the two teams converge here. Nebula, I believe, Nebula catches up with them, and thus they form a plan to basically,
They know
get
that
the drop
Thanos
on
is coming
Thanos.
because Strange has still the Eye of Agamotto, which Thanos needs very badly. So they're gonna have to protect it somehow and decommission Thanos in some capacity. So we need to come up with a plan on that.
So Strange is up to that, using the Time Stone to look at all the possible futures, over 1 billion of them.
Yeah, good luck.
So basically,
Good luck seeing
Good luck
what's
with
gonna
that.
happen in the alternate universe where all the Marvel heroes are animals, but that's
so
another-
basically the film's now turned into the Walking Dead video game.
According to Strange, only I think 2
Not
end with
one,
them.
only
Wait,
one
Thanos
possible
will remember
future.
this.
Yep, it was one.
Was
True.
only
Which-
one, and he's not really happy announcing this, but nonetheless,
Well, who
they
would
do have a
be?
plan about undoing things, which happens with a trailer shot of Thanos. Well, not the trailer shot. Basically, Thanos arrives on Titan, attracted basically from the signal, I think, of the Eye of Agamotto. And then
You know
we
what I
have
love?
this
It's the
very
fact that-
interesting
oh, God.
fight scene. Each character uses their abilities in a smart way in order to not kill Thanos, but to immobilize him so they can take away the Infinity Gauntlet itself. We even get to see Strange actually using the Crimson Band of Cyttorak, which people wouldn't expected it to happen because Cyttorak technically is supposed to be a character owned by Fox right now. So what happened, I don't know.
Wow. So basically, beforehand, though, Thanos actually has a little speech with them,
that's
justifying
right.
his plans.
About
He tells them
his
about how his home
motivation.
world got destroyed by overpopulation, and ever since then, he's realized that when you take half out of something, the other half scrambles to make it. They'll be desperate.
The problem
Anxious.
is you need to take away an half without prejudice. So how do you do this? By basically let fate decide with what else? A finger snap. Well, basically, if the Infinity Gauntlet will possess all the Infinity Stones and Thanos will execute a single finger snap on it, he will manage to realize his most inner desire, making an entire half of the entire universe disappear, just dust in the wind. With no
Yep.
discrimination, no racism of any kind, just an half, not arbitrarily selected at random. No ifs nor whats, you're gone if you're in the blacklist. So,
Which
there
is
you go.
basically why the heroes got to stop him. And yeah, like Tia said, they actually put up a pretty good fight. To the point where Thanos even does an homage to Marvel versus flipping Capcom of all things.
He drops
Yeah.
an entire moon using projectiles, which is one of his hyper combos, basically.
And this is where
we
Peter
see him
Parker gets
using
to show off some
we
of
see
his
him using
acrobatics.
I think the space stone in order to do that, by literally
Yeah.
yanking the moon and pulling it down like a fish hook. He also uses the reality stone to create some metal bats against Iron Man, but I never, or it's the soul stone, I forgot. One of those two to use it that way. But I never got that. That attack was very effective. But whatever. Point being, after a lot of struggle, which kinda makes me wonder why didn't Strange just severed his arm with the gauntlet that had using the portal spell? Whatever.
Or use the Time Stone to rewind stuff, but we'll get to that later. But basically, the plan is actually going down pretty good. Like,
Yeah,
Peter actually gets to contribute heavily to the point where his webbing is actually getting the gauntlet off of Thanos, while Mantis
and
is,
he's,
keeping him subdued
stunning him
mentally.
using the same trick that she used against Ego. And then Peter
Unfortunately-
decides to ask too many questions. Shiroi, you have something to say on the matter?
Yes, I do.
Take it away, Shiroi.
Please.
They almost had it.
Oh,
Like, completely right there. But the only reason that they lost is because fucking, like, oh, I can't even.
this is one of those
Thanos,
predictable moments.
Thanos played the whole I killed your girlfriend" card.
I mean, here's the thing, though.
Yeah,
Thanos
and
is-
because he couldn't keep his boner in check, that's the only reason that they lost this.
See,
Dude!
yeah, allow me to talk about why I don't really care for the scene. It's like, well, okay, I knew
I
from the
hate
get-
this scene.
Oh.
Sorry.
Trust me, Shiroi. I would have wall banged if I could have as well because of how that scene went. See, okay, look, if you were going to do this like this, I think, okay, maybe Thanos would tell them from the start, oh, by the way, I had to murder Gamora because, you know, at the very least, then I find it more believable that the plan wasn't going to work because then Quill would be,
Well,
you know,
those
faltering.
feelings, to be fair to Thanos, those feelings were kind of forced out of him.
I get that, but you think that Thanos would, you know, at least gloat about it, you know, strategically speaking.
No,
But-
why would he go about killing his own daughter?
Well, he
It
would
Kind
Think
of
about
upset
it.
him, you know?
think
Okay.
about it. Think about
But
it.
it
though.
upset Thanos as well.
Yeah, exactly my point, though. It's like, well, it upsets Thanos, but surely he'd use it strategically. Here's still my point, though. If
But remember,
Thanos,
again, like I said, it was kind of forced out of him. He had no control in those feelings kind of breaking out.
which is
so
part of
he
my
couldn't-
issue, because because it has to be done like this, that means that Quill messes up at the very last minute. Like, let me put it like this.
Well, it's Star-Lord's fault because, again, he couldn't
Yeah.
keep his boner in check. Because it's like the fate of the universe rests on getting this gauntlet off him. And you're really going to do this. You know what's at stake, you asshole. This is your fault.
I mean, look, writers, if you
Okay,
want to do this,
another tiny nitpick. You know how during the fight, Doctor Strange made clones of himself,
Yeah, using the
and
time
how he
stone.
also saw
That
the
was fun.
multiple outcomes. Why didn't he make a clone of himself when Star-Lord was about to get angry, use the clone, push Star-Lord out of the way so they can get the gauntlet and go
Because
home?
we had to have a movie.
basically,
Because-
Star-Lord gets
Yeah,
angry.
that's like the worst thing, you know. If we did that, there would be a movie.
Yeah, I
Basically.
But
know.
I mean, it's terrible, but I'm not wrong.
It's
am I?
another sign
Yeah.
that the writers essentially left themselves in a cul-de-sac, so they needed something, anything to come out of it, and they thought the first thing that came to their mind. It's pretty
Basically,
clear.
people,
But
there's
hey,
some-
hang on. Hang on. Didn't Thanos have the the reality stone at that point?
Yeah.
yeah.
Couldn't he have just, I don't know, turned them all into jelly and just
We
slid
already
away or
went
something?
there, Dwibs,
Okay,
so
okay.
it's,
We went
it's
through
another
that.
point we
And-
discussed already.
And to be fair, at this point, they have him mentally subdued, so he can't concentrate it well when they have him in the trap. Like, that much they actually did foresee. Now, to sum up the scene, basically, basically, they have him. Quill asks, hey, where's Gamora? Then Mantis senses Thanos' emotions about Gamora, and Thanos begrudgingly admits he had to do it. And then basically everyone is saying, like literally all the cast, even the people in the theater are saying,
Shut the
Peter,
fuck up.
don't
Peter.
do this, don't do this. Tony Stark is saying, we've literally got this right now.
It's like
I'm
that
like,
cat that is holding hostage a vase before pushing it in. Don't do it, and he's like, I'm pushing it.
It makes it all the more annoying to me when he punches Thanos in the face to the point where it
Multiple
knocks
times,
Mantis out.
Jovah.
Yeah, to the
Multiple
point where it knocks
times.
Mantis out, releasing her control on him, and then he pretty much brutalizes them back. They had it. They freaking had it. Like, okay, look, I can get that they were set up to fail, but don't. Please don't yank the dog's chain like that. Like, that's not really good to have your heroes literally lose at the last minute because of that. Like, you know,
The
even if
moment
it's
like Thanos started talking about what had happened was the moment I was just like, oh no, they're really going to do
It's
this.
similar once again to that moment what happened before Gamora. The scene was predictable and you knew where it was coming, even though if you did not wanted.
It's
Right?
I think the thing that's even worse for me is like, well, I saw that kind of scene coming. What I didn't see was how much at the last second it was gonna happen. Like that just made it worse. Ugh.
Anyway, it comes even to a point where Spider-Man actually did manage to remove the gauntlet, but it's too late because Thanos grabs it and just toss Spider-Man away like a cheap toy. So
Basically, folks, everything afterwards that happens is Star-Lord's fault, and
It's like Jar Jar Binks giving the powers to Palpatine in Attack of the Clones.
You know,
There's
I was
no
half
excuse for that
expecting.
scene.
I was half expecting one of two things. Either every time they showed Star Lord on screen, when what at the end happened, have him saying this is all your fault, or like when the things happening, have like them since they missed the huge captions on the taking up all the screen so much. Just have while that's happening, just have the caption on screen flashing. This is all Star Lord's fault.
And to get a little bit ahead, an issue is that Star-Lord will not have to deal with the ramification of his actions. But I'm not going to say why yet.
Yeah.
But okay, there was a lot of rage. So what could they have possibly have brought to get the fans to settle down more? Wakanda. Let's talk about Wakanda now. Let's go to our happy place. So, in Wakanda, basically, T'Challa and Okoye are checking on Bucky Barnes. Well, but now it's the White Wolf.
Of course, it's super edgy.
No, it's Captain America and Post Avengers 4.
So basically, T'Challa gets a call from his buds, the Avengers, because according to the back of the DVD cover of Black Panther, apparently the story of Black Panther was about him also discovering his place as an Avenger. What the heck, DVD writers? But I digress. He's an Avenger, part-time, whatever. Anyway, they have called and asked for help involving Vision. So they're also getting Bucky Barnes. And Okoye gives quite a funny scene, basically, where she says, when you said we were going to interact with the outside world, I thought we were going to set up a Starbucks, not this.
Oh, the Olympics.
Yes. Oh, God, the Olympics at Wakanda. Please let that be a thing eventually.
They're foreshadowing.
Hey, man, look.
The Avengers at the Olympic Games.
It'll be the best Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games to date.
It will be. Mario and Sonic at the Wakanda Olympic Games.
Yes, please.
So basically, the stage is set in Wakanda, which
supposedly, thanks to the major technology, they will try to manage to connect all the neural function of Vision in order to remove effectively the Mind Stone without actually having him to die because of it. The problem is that there's like a fuck ton of them, and even with the kind of technology, it's gonna take a while. In the meantime, they will have to contend against Thanos' forces, which basically consist in the remaining children of Thanos, basically Call Obsidian minus a hand, Corpus Grave Resurrected, and Proxima Midnight in full period. So.
Wait. Oh, right. Wait, Corpus Grave was
He's still alive. Remember, Jovah, his whole shtick is that he comes back from the dead regularly even if you kill him.
Shoot, I thought that there were 5 children of Thanos.
Supergiant is not in the movie for some reason. I don't understand why.
It's okay, though, because this time he'll get killed by Vision. No, I'm not really spoiling much because that happens soon enough.
Yeah, so basically we get this Lord of the Rings style like epic battle. All the enemies in front of the deflector shield of Wakanda, while on the other hand we have our forces of good, Captain America with a shield gently giving him to by T'Challa, Winter Soldier, Black Widow, and we even get Bruce Banner in the Hulkbuster, even though I did not care a single time about it, because again Bruce Banner is handled so poorly here, and I stressed them.
How did he even know how to work that thing?
Even admits it, but he doesn't know, and you can see him stuttering around because of it.
Yeah.
So basically, folks, the last part of this movie,
the Hulk, except without transform. NFL.
Yeah. Basically, folks, the last third of the movie takes place in Wakanda and in space with Thor. More on that later. So, basically, Shuri comes back into play to help out with Vision because she's all that in a bag of chips. And Scarlet Witch is going to stay with her because she loves Vision.
To give backup if possible during a possible attack.
More on that later. So, the battle is about to begin with basically Wakanda putting down their shields. Oh, and M'Baku's here to help too.
Yeah,
Can I say something about this particular fight quickly? Not any specific details, just how the fight felt. As much as I like Black Panther, that particular fight was not exactly anticlimactic, but a bit underwhelming, all things considered.
It's because we just had Black Panther, so
we have Black Panther was premiered like 2 months before.
I mean, yeah, to
I
put it
know,
like
but
this,
they had a similar fight in Infinity War in the exact same location that was pretty much what the final fight in Black Panther should have been, and it was glorious.
Yeah, how-
No.
what?
Huh?
Wait! You said that the fight in the final battle in Infinity War was better than in Black Panther.
Yeah, the fight in Wakanda, it was definitely a lot more than for what the finale of Black Panther should have been.
Yeah, but the Infinity War have rhinos? I think not. Checkmate.
Terrible CGI rhinos, yes.
I don't care about the rhinos.
Okay. I think I can see what Shiroi
To be
means.
fair, I didn't like the Amazing Spider-Man 2's ending either.
Oh, God. Okay. But yeah, I think I see what Shiroi means. It's like, well, for a final fight in Avengers Infinity War, it does feel a bit repetitive after Black Panther.
No,
I mean,
no, that isn't what I'm saying. I'm saying it's the exact same fight in almost every sense of the this is the one in Black Panther, but this is what the final fight in Black Panther should have been.
wait, hold on. So is this a
hell of lot
complaint?
more climax than it actually was. I'm saying this fight, it being the exact same one, was a lot better. than
Oh,
what we
okay.
got.
So is this a complaint against Black Panther or a complaint against this movie?
It's not a complaint against either. It's a point
Oh,
for
okay.
this movie and a slight, not a complaint because Black Panther's an amazing movie. It's just a slight note, is all.
True. In hindsight, I guess I do realize that Black Panther was kind of made to be a bit smaller because it was obviously meant to be the final stepping stone for this movie.
Mhm.
I mean,
Actually,
but yeah.
wasn't that the ending of Ragnarok? That kind of directly led into.
Well, take it more as
Well-
parallel things, basically.
Well,
Okay.
okay, sure. Black Panther was literally the last film released before Infinity War, to the point where they even said Black Panther will return in Infinity War.
Infinity War, yeah.
yes.
So I guess I mean in
Yeah,
the
I see
meta
what you mean.
sense. But
Mhm.
yeah, but who knows? Maybe Black Panther 2, which has also been confirmed, will
So-
be even bigger. and
So
better.
anyway, we're having these fight scene where everyone tries to basically gets to do something with some villains basically. They
Okaye and Black Widow go up against
Yeah.
Midnight. Again, Midnight's only going up against the females.
and she gets killed in a very Looney Tunes way. She gets strapped into these hamster wheels that they're using to try to kill the others, and she gets strapped in one of her own weapons basically, and that's it.
By Scarlet Witch of all people, to the point where Okaye says, "Why wasn't she out here with us in the first place?"
Yeah, what has Scarlet Witch done in this film up to that point?
She's
Yeah.
done powers here and there.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
one of the major problems of the film, and one that I feared would happen. There's way too many characters to the point where some of them just get sidelined and do nothing.
Well, to be
Th-
fair,
my-
to be
yeah.
honest, I still did felt at the end of the day that each of them had their own, even if minor, time to shine in their
Oh,
own.
one of them was removed completely.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the ones
Oh
were
right,
present,
Hawkeye. Oh right, I forgot to mention. They also mentioned offhand that Hawkeye and Ant-Man left to be with their families.
which we'll see what happens doing Ant-Man and the Wasp coming later this year.
Mm-hmm.
Point being, we're basically now having this fight. People are doing anything, but unfortunately, the process on Vision does not manage to be completed before the science lab gets blown off. So Vision has to escape there and almost gets killed once again by Corvus Glaive, but thanks to also the power of the others, managed to turn the table, and Vision impales Corvus Glaive on his own staff. Very
And before
cathartic.
before anyone worries, don't worry. Shuri managed to fight him off enough to live.
Mhm.
Because can you imagine the outrage that they killed Shuri
But then we get a trailer shot.
with Obsidian?
Not just that, not Obsidian, Jovah. Basically, at this point in time, back on Titan, I don't know if you mentioned already, but basically, after the fight with the others, Thanos basically has Iron Man at his mercy, and he basically imposes a choice on Doctor Strange: the life of
This-
Tony Stark against the Time Stone. Strange
This
has to
is
think
weird.
about it, but ultimately gives it on his own free will, saying that, reinstating that it is the only way. It's not the last time he's gonna say it.
This
Mhm.
was weird to me because okay, it's the obvious Stark and Strange were at each other's throats before, and both rich dicks at each other. And yet this felt like the part where Strange now likes Tony, And I don't know, I mean, well, despite how long the movie was, to me it felt like, yeah, really? I mean, I
don't think that's what they were going for, but I'll let you finish first.
Okay. I mean, okay. I get that that's not what they're going for eventually, but that's what that scene felt like. I mean, like, we get apparently his real intentions at the end, but to me it still felt weird because it felt like an obvious, hey, now he likes him, because otherwise, strange. Why not just rewind time enough? You've done it before with Dormammu, and that was just.
It's like the time turner in Harry Potter.
I mean,
to be fair, I think a lot of people were complaining about how much of a Deus Ex Machina that really was.
Well, gee, it's kind of a shame that it gets used as a Deus Ex Machina near the end of the film either way. But again, more on that later. But yeah, essentially, Thanos now has the Time Stone.
So
Meanwhile,
what
back at the Forge,
he teleports that immediately. He uses that to teleport immediately on Wakanda. But like Jovah said, briefly, let's go back to the Forge. Basically, thanks to his awesomeness, he comes up with a plan of reactivating the star and managing to forge basically a new version of Mjolnir, Stormbreaker, which, if you know the comic. If you know the comics, is exactly what it is, another version of Mjolnir.
Oh, right, I almost forgot to mention. Thor now has both eyes open now because,
Rocket gave him a prosthetic eye. So, basically, all the development that Thor had in Thor Ragnarok is completely gone. Losing an eye, losing Mjolnir, and managing to get his people back.
In real life, that partially also had to do with the fact that wearing an eye patch for that long, his actor was not that comfortable with, considering, the disease you can heal from wearing an eye patch over an actual eye.
Anyway,
I'll admit, I like him about the eye patch better, but I will admit I kind of raised an eyebrow at that. But then again, it is kind of typical MCU to have something like a robot eye. So I got that one pass.
We're going to say raised an eye patch for a second.
What a story, Dwibs. Anyway,
so Thor now has a new axe, which Groot even helps make because they need a handle for it.
But they don't know what to do, so Groot, he takes away a moment the eye from the Tiger Electronic game and actually sacrifices a limb to make the entire handle of Stormbreaker. So that's very charming. Anyway, back to Wakanda for a second. Thanos teleports with a trailer shot. There you go, the one where he emerges for the portal, looking around. But people conveniently reverse in case of Shadman. But that's a topic for another day. So now they know that shit's about to get real, so in a very desperate measure, even Vision tells her to do it. Scarlet essentially just blows up the Mind Stone. However, since
Time Stone activated.
Hang on, can I have this one?
Yeah.
Go on.
Because this is the scene that kind of annoyed me a little bit. So yeah, all that tension and the drama of that scene, and especially considering how much they played up that scene, is immediately rendered meaningless by the fact that the bad guy has a reverse time device.
So we all knew that was coming.
Yeah, this was.
So why did they treat the whole death of Vision as though it was some major big deal? If everyone in the back of the mind in the cinema was going to think, oh yeah, you can just reverse time, can't it? So what's the point of it?
Yeah, it's like, I mean,
no, Thanos was just fucking with them. Pardon my French.
True. Although I'll admit, I
don't think they knew about the Time Stone.
Well, I know that the characters did not know about it, but the audience does. It's like, well, I mean,
that's like the worst thing. If the audience is ahead of the characters and they know this big dramatic scene isn't going to amount to anything, then there's no tension and there's nothing there. Everyone knows it's just going to reverse time and fix everything. So why are we sitting for this again?
Again, I'm going to say this right now. Definitely deciding reality and Time Stone. Okay, here's how I would have done it. The reality and Time Stone would have been the last ones that Thanos gets simultaneously. As in, like, well, those last two are protected, and he has to get them so that he doesn't already have them. Like, space, yeah, he controls some cosmos, but, you can still maneuver around that, as Spider-Man showed. Soul Stone, brings back people from the dead. That's not really Thanos' main goal.
Yeah.
Power,
like he's trying to kill people,
Yeah, power. It's a glorified power enhancer, and it's shown that other people can beat him even using that, as long as they're working together. And what's the fourth of the one he has? Oh yeah, the Mind Stone is. What does he use the Mind Stone for? I completely forgot.
No,
what
you
does the
remember
Mind
that
Stone do?
the Mind Stone is the last one he gets. So.
Yeah.
And then, oh yeah, that's right, the Mind Stone. Yeah, that's the last one he gets. And
Because that's exactly what happens using the Time Stone. Thanos conveniently rewinds the time back, and manages to get the Mind Stone, effectively killing Vision like that in a very well retroactively anticlimactic way.
oh yeah,
sadly.
that's right, because the Mind Stone allows the user to enhance their mental abilities. It's like, okay, look, had Thanos, been starting the movie with the Mind, Soul, Power, and Space Stone, it would be much more of a fair fight. But because he has the Reality Stone movie and has the Time Stone before he gets even the flipping last one, it's like you need someone incredibly powerful to beat him at this point, or get the gauntlet off. Thanks a lot, Peter.
Anyway,
Well.
yeah. So now Thanos has all the Infinity Stones. However, out of nowhere, basically, as soon as you obtain Stormbreaker, Thor uses it to teleport him, Groot, and Rocket back on Earth
And
exactly
Thor is
where he
accompanied by the best music in this movie.
That's because it's the rising moment, the last hope that the Avengers have. Thor coming to rescue the day at the very end. He charges in on Thanos, and he hits him in the chest, I think.
He should have aimed for the head.
Yeah,
or the
Thanos
arm.
laughs in his face, and
snap.
yeah, this
He
just
didn't
went
hit
into
him
the
in the
cringe
head because
compilation.
he
Yeah.
said like you should have gone for the head. So he really is like a Titan in that sense.
Not just that,
then-
arguably he could have gone for the arm. Again, severing the arm with the gauntlet is an option. Why no one thinks about that?
Now, to be fair, in Thor's case, I can expect Thor not to think ahead like that.
No,
so
it's
that
true.
was one fair bit one.
Mhm.
So basically, Thanos disappears, and then things get deathly quiet.
Yeah, at first I didn't really understood what was going on. Like, the movie seemed to like he's just stopped in universe. Like it wasn't a freeze frame, but it just stopped. And then the effect of the snap starts to happen when we see the body count. Now here's
Starting
the thing.
off-
No, I wanna
Okay.
give out like a small perfection. I went in this movie with a fucking death bingo list. Even on the SSMB, people know what I actually did.
Yeah, we all did.
But the
Everyone
problem-
thought Captain
I was-
America was
I
gonna
didn't.
die.
I just wanted to
Jovah,
sit
I
in there
was
and watch it
expecting Cap to
happen.
die in Civil War, but Marvel just doesn't want to let that go.
Yeah.
But the point being,
Chris Hemsworth is going to be stuck playing that role for
I-
eternity.
I had
No, Chris Evans. Sorry, Chris Evans.
I didn't. It's not even a thing like say, oh, just like two people right. No. I was expecting, like, for example, half the cast to die. The problem is that the half of it they chose to let die. So
Let's talk about who dies before we go into
Yeah,
our issues with it.
does anyone have a specific list? Because I may forgot some.
I've got it.
All
ahead.
right, then. I'll recount
Okay.
some of the scenes as well. But
I'll
first, you
handle
go.
the ones off screen told in interviews.
Yeah, okay. Basically, out of the named characters, those who die are Bucky,
Winter Soldier.
Charlotte, Groot,
And his last words were "Dad."
Yeah.
Yeah, that was sad.
Scarlet Witch. Is that her name?
Yeah.
Yep. But don't worry, Vision's still
Falcon, I
around,
think.
just dead in his mind.
Wilson. I
Sam
don't know.
Wilson, the Falcon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry. Mantis,
Yes.
Ouch.
Drax.
Drax, Quill,
Star-Lord.
Doctor Strange, and Spidey.
Yeah, Doctor Strange before going tells again in clear detail to Iron Man that it was the only way, supposedly.
I can't believe he actually said the words "we're in Endgame" now.
I
Also,
can't believe of all
also,
people
fun-
to die, they took
also-
out Black Panther.
Also, a fun fact: apparently, when Parker was being dissolved, apparently the lines that were in that
Was
film were actually Tom
improvised,
Holland
yeah.
improvising.
Yeah,
That's
let's
in
talk
the
about
side
that
quote
scene.
Doctor Who, of course.
Even though I had an idea that he's gonna be back, and we'll cover that more.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
will say
you
this
don't-
though.
Hold on in a
Yeah,
second,
so-
Dwibs, don't worry. Sorry, go ahead.
I will say
Jovah.
this though, the scene, but a lot of the death scenes were actually legit chilling and well done, especially Spider-Man's death. Like, okay, not only was Spider-Man a character people were expecting to live, and I'll get into why later, but the death scene just comes at you like.
Here's
I
the
don't feel so
problem,
good.
Jovah. I
I
was
think
you
they were
don't-
deliberately doing that
here's
to
the
like
Yeah, I was
problem,
gonna
rip
say,
your
you
Jovah.
don't-
heart
I was
out.
completely
Oh, one at a time,
I was
guys.
completely desensitized by my lack of suspension of disbelief for that specific case. Like,
Yeah.
I could really, just really stretch for Black Panther because maybe Marvel was not expecting it to be this big new thing, and it was something that was planned
Oops.
before. But Spider-Man, are you really serious? After all that deal that you had with Sony, after all the sequels that you have planned on this, are you seriously telling me that you're decommissioning the character, even though even his actor has a contract for 2 more movies? And
Yeah, I
Not
was
only
just gonna
that,
say
Spider-
if they did go through with that, wouldn't that kind of piss Sony off? Saying, "Wait a minute, you had to share the
Yeah.
franchise with you, and now you're gonna kill him off."
Not just
Let me
that,
put it like
almost
this.
practically
Spider-Man
all
is
all
pretty
the
much-
character that died practically had a future in the MCU. So
Yeah.
Marvel,
We'll
what
cover
is
that
Marvel
more.
telling us with this?
But
First,
we know Spider-Man's death isn't permanent anyway.
Fuck you, we got your money.
not just that, Dwibs. It's essentially telling us that these deaths are meaningless. That we should not care about them. That essentially,
We know they're getting a sequel.
not just that-
Wait, that reminds me. A few weeks ago, Kevin Feige has
Yeah,
gone on
I'm
record
I'm
saying,
about to mention that they basically in interviews they told also some people that lived or died off screen. According to that list, the people who are alive are Valkyrie, Howard the Duck, and May. The people who are officially dead are the actor who played Loki in Thor Ragnarok, basically Matt Damon. They killed off
Oh.
Matt Damon. Betty
Damon.
Ross and Sif. Sif cannot catch a fucking break.
Wait, who?
And yet
Sif, the
Abomin-
goddess of war for Thor.
and yet Abomination is still out there
We
and
don't
kicking.
know
apparently.
anything about Abomination. Basically, the spoilery categories so we don't know are Jane Foster, Korg, Miek, Shuri, and Ned. And the only one we don't know anything they refuse to tell is Nakia, because apparently she's still undercover or something.
Because she's a spy, yo. But
So-
okay.
Not just that, again, like I mentioned, this is telling me that Marvel doesn't really have the balls to kill its character off. Like,
Yeah.
it's pretty clear to me
Well,
at this point.
that's like a common criticism of the MCU.
I'm
They
s-
don't.
That's a
if-
criticism of
if-
comic books in general. Again,
Yeah,
they're like magical
hang on,
girls.
hang
They're
on,
not
hang on.
going
One
to
at a
God,
die.
time, guys.
God
One at a
wins.
time, guys.
Hang on.
Come
That's been a common criticism of the MCU. If death is, they basically, I think have they revived a couple of characters from the dead.
Except Quicksilver, who honestly, okay, Quicksilver's one of the few characters
yeah.
I would actually like them to bring back, if only because he barely got some time
And-
to develop.
That again, you know,
His death was
like,
forced.
if that's the thing though. If they keep going with the whole the heroes don't die thing, then there's going to be no tension because everyone thinks they'll just revive him at the end.
Exactly what,
Well,
what I
again, this is
mentioned.
how
I mean,
comic
and
books
that's-
are, to the
it's
point
one
where there are
thing-
jokes about it within comics themselves.
Oh,
It's one thing-
Shiroi, I have
it's-
something to tell you after
but-
this.
It's,
Let Dwibs say-
it's one thing to do that in comics, but in movies, that's another thing entirely.
Not
See,
just-
the thing with
okay.
comics is like, well, inherently, comics are going to go on for a long time. And, you know, you want
also, you
people
need
of
to
all
sell
ages to
merchandise.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want of all people of all ages to learn about those heroes in there. And you know what? To their credit, comics like Spider-Man have adapted it so that, you know, all comics are canon to the point where, you know, okay, it makes sense because they actually do have it like it's been a decade or something. So at the very least, comics have the excuse that we're seeing these heroes as lives fold out. So we don't want to see them die because we want to see their journeys continue. The movies are a bit of a different case because now it's gotten to the point of them lampshading it. Now, okay, before we talk more about the deaths of this movie, I would like for us to cover the ending of this movie.
No,
because...
I want to say one thing that Kevin Faulkner has said in an interview a few weeks ago that death in the MCU is like comic book deaths.
See,
So basically, it does not matter.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
want to know?
Never mind that
that's
the
a
same-
cardinal sin for that's a
Never
cardinal
mind.
sin for movies.
Never mind that the writers of the movie actually went out just a couple of days after it was released to actually say, no, those are permanent, and everyone say, yeah, we're totally believing you.
Like what? Like because they already announced sequels for Black Panther, Spider-Man,
Guardians of the
Doctor
Galaxy,
Strange.
and so on.
So it's like it removes all the tension,
It's-
and it's like the only characters
Maybe they
we
shouldn't
were
have
worried-
announced the movies then.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
you know.
The only
this
characters
that
who were
ultimately
worried-
takes me away from the movie. Like the fact that my suspension of disbelief gets destroyed, mocked, and insulted on me because I dared to actually have some common sense for expectations.
Like
We've been talking a lot negative about this movie, though we said we liked it earlier.
Oh, yeah,
Oh no, I really enjoyed this movie.
wait.
It's just the problems I have.
Okay,
Can
guys.
I go first?
Well,
Yeah,
hold
sure.
on. I think we should first talk about the end, abrupt as it is, and then
Yeah.
get back to the deaths here.
Yeah,
fine.
during the final with on Titan, Strange actually asked a simple question to Thanos: "What the fuck are you gonna do after you're done your annihilation?" And Thanos actually has a simple answer to that. He literally says something like, "I will return to my home planet, sit down, and watch the sunset." And that's exactly what happens. We get another
Just
trippy
the end of another day.
we get another trippy sequence where Thanos pretty much talks some more with the child version of Gamora inside the Soul Stone, where she asks, "What did you sacrifice in
Did
order
you
to get
do it?"
everything?" And he says, "I sacrificed everything."
What
So
a- what a-
supposedly he knows that he did some bad thing, but whatever, I'm not caring.
So he
anymore.
goes to a villa in Wakanda, great place to rest, I guess, and just goes
and
down,
watches the
sits down,
sunset like
and
that.
then
It looks straight out of a Falgies commercial.
and then, believe it or not, folks,
That one coffee. I forgot
Yeah.
the brand.
the movie cut to black. Like you could
There's not
hear
even an ending
everyone-
song. It's just very quiet. The credits are very quiet.
It's like the entire theater went, "Wait, what? No, you can't end it like that. Like that's usually the initial
But
reaction."
in true tradition, we have another post-credit
After
scene.
credits, yeah.
Nick
In the
Fury.
middle of New York, Nick Fury and Maria Hill are just driving by because they have their own things to do. When things start to go weird, it's almost like the movie Cloverfield, where there is a monster attacking a city, but we don't know where it is. And then we start seeing people disappear. Nick Fury kind of has a realization moment, almost as if he was expecting this, and goes to take a device that was in the back of his car, but he just slightly presses the button and he's disintegrating while saying "motherfucker" like that. Because we need Samuel L. Jackson saying his trademark
We
line.
need something fun. To
Then we
happen.
pan over the device, which is like person search. I forgot what it's called. Device, one of those that they use before cell phones in order to have a person contact each other and say, "Oh, I need you to go in this location," and it composes into the Captain Marvel logo, meaning that she's gonna have to save the day in the forefront.
Well, that's that.
Okay, they better have a damn good explanation as to why she wasn't there this entire time.
Also, for good context, people, this is going to be make it or break it because not only that, they have to make Carol Danvers likable enough for to warrant being the saving grace.
In case you're out of the comic book industry for a while, Marvel has really tried to push Carol Danvers this year and has only failed after failed.
Miss Marvel is better.
Like
Well,
I
Miss Marvel.
cannot believe the things they did to Carol for the sake of selling more comics and again appeasing to the fucking Tumblr crowd.
Basically, at this point, Carol has taken Tony's place as the drunkard. She is part of the reason that Civil War II happened, got people killed, and she's
And spouted
not
a
the most
lot
likable.
of nonsense for the sake of pushing that fucking agenda that Marvel Comics wanted to have that it doesn't even exist at this point.
Like, let me put it like this. Miss Marvel actually is popular. Miss Marvel is currently played by an Islamic... God, I forget the girl's
Isn't
name.
she one of the Inhumans?
Camilla Khan, I believe.
Yeah,
Kamala
yeah.
Khan, yeah.
Although, good news, though, we got confirmation that she should be getting her own movie too soon, so that's nice.
Will that be in like phase 60 or whatever.
The point being
We'll
that the
see.
character of Carol Danvers right now is very disliked by general Marvel fans. So introducing her to the movie is gonna be a very difficult move.
Can I throw a counterpoint?
Yes.
What?
Before Iron Man came out, Tony Stark was pretty much the most hated person in Marvel because of Civil War.
2 years
So, and
before.
look, and then when his movie came out,
Again,
everyone
well,
liked Iron
Deji,
Man. So
once again, if there's one thing that the MCU has proven is that they can turn shit into gold. Well, like
Yeah.
they
They took
managed,
Civil
they
War of all
managed to
people.
have
For
the
10 years.
they managed to have the director of the Scooby-Doo movies managing to get two great movies straight back to back.
wait,
They
what
made-
movies were these?
The Guardians of the Galaxy.
What?
I know, right?
Oh,
It's
he
shocking.
didn't know. Okay.
James Gunn was the guy responsible for the Scooby-Doo movie. Seriously.
I mean,
Well, he was one of the writers.
Exactly.
if you want to be fair, the best part about the Scooby-Doo movie was when Scrappy was the villain.
I personally did not like that, and
But we're digressing. We already dragged this way too much, so
Okay.
let's,
Alright.
let's just get to the
Okay.
contentious moment. So basically, oh yeah, by the way, a final fuck you moment. We get to the classic will return, but it's now about Thanos. I mean, the last thing we see before the final credits, Thanos will return. Fuck you.
For- Now, okay, now let's get to talking about those deaths, and let me start with talking about Nick Fury. Okay, Black Panther was one thing, and I will go more into that later, but Nick Fury, okay, this has nothing to do with Nick Fury being black. We have not seen the guy since, like, the end of Winter Soldier, if I recall correctly.
Age of Ultron.
Are there any?
How
Are there
right
any
he was in
people?
that.
I've forgotten. Are there any? Are there any people of color left alive?
Yeah, War
War
Machine.
Machine.
And
Yeah, the
and
girl from Black
M'Baku,
Panther.
M'Baku also is still alive. So
And Okaye as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, I guess notable ones up front. It's like, okay, look, with Nick Fury, okay, there's no way that they would bring Samuel Jackson back for an after-credit scene and not bring him back to life.
not just
Now-
that, Jovah, even if it's the other way around, if we want to stay committed, that makes things even worse, because you just say in that case that you decided that these characters were not worth anymore, and you prefer that it was better off just to X them away, and that's inexcusable. So no matter how you
It's
look at
like-
it, the situation is not good no matter how you look at it.
I get the feeling. Well, my personal theory is that before they started writing, they gathered every single actor of the MCU into a big room and said, "Right, all those of you who don't want to continue on past Infinity War, raise your hands."
And those are the ones who got
How
to
the
see.
characters should die.
What?
Yeah.
So those are the ones who survived. Because yes, the theme of this is that the people left alive are basically the original Avengers,
Plus
MCU was,
someone like Rocket Raccoon, for example,
and Nebula.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing. Some people were speculating that Nebula will take Gamorre's place in Guardians
Not
of the
just that,
Galaxy.
this also
3.
means that Tony Stark is stuck on Titan with Nebula, and he doesn't know how to return on Earth. So, but anyway, that what I also mean at what I mentioned at the beginning, sort of, is the fact that this was originally advertised as a two-parter, but then Marvel went its very clear way to announce that this was supposed to be instead its own movie, and Avengers for next year its own thing again. So essentially, by doing this, they turned this into a basically a rating strap, only for the sake of having more bucks, and it worked because it worked. People were gullible. I'm sorry if I say this, but the average MCU fan at this point is a very gullible person, because they usually doesn't have that much knowledge of the comics. Thus, we're expecting anything to happen, and we will believe anything that's thrown in our way. So all these deaths, a lot of people are actually believing that these deaths are permanent, and I'm sorry
and I guess
to
to
say
be fair,
this,
they're not as much big comic book fans as us, so I can't
well,
blame them for believing
even
it.
when
Especially,
you take down on, even if you take away that, Jovah, there's still the fact of the upcoming movies. It only takes you just a tiny bit of logic to see that this castle of cards doesn't stand up on its own.
let's talk about the theories.
I'm sorry to use this excuse. Maybe some of them are kids, and like you know what, we were kids and we didn't really look up all this stuff.
You know what's funny? I actually heard a baby cry at the end of Infinity War.
Why?
The child who was
Wow.
sitting
Why would
behind
you-
me during that movie got very
Why do
quiet
you-
out the latter
Why
half
do you
of that
take your
movie.
babies to see a movie like Infinity War? Like,
Why do
I'm sure-
people take their babies to see movies in general?
Because kids love superheroes.
No, I'm talking about actual babies.
Oh,
Tell-
well,
tell me
How did
about.
they even get in?
Tell me about it,
Oh,
Deji.
they're allowed-
The
they're
other-
allowed
the,
to
the,
go.
the last week I went to see Solo, a Star Wars story, and the theater where I was had at least 3 families with children. One right next to me, and guess what? The father was louder than the child. Like,
wow.
I,
Okay.
I was so tempted.
Children
to
are
put,
the reason.
I was so tempted to
Oh.
put my elbow in his pancreas, but let's just move on, please.
So next
Children
topic.
are the reason that I don't like watching horror movies because they don't scream because they're scared. They scream for the sake of screaming,
Go ahead,
and it's
Jovah.
really annoying.
So
But
next topic, let's talk about the theories going on, because a lot of people don't want to believe that these shows will be coming back. People have been making theories about what's going to happen for these future
Someone
already
on the
confirmed
SSMB
titles.
theorizes about using an alternate universe excuse, but I don't really buy it.
Now, here's
The closest thing I can imagine is the counter Earth. In case you don't know, in the Marvel comics, there's an exact copy of the Earth rotating at the polar opposite way of the solar system, but has exactly the same amount of people as Earth. So basically, there are copies of the hero. Basically,
including
an
the
entire
Avengers, I'm guessing.
yeah, exactly, and it was made by a person called the High Evolutionary, which is a bad guy. So a couple of people may speculate that he's gonna be the villain of the co-villain of Thanos in the next movie, but whatever. It's use speculation. Go ahead, Jovah. Continue.
Now, when it comes to Spider-Man Homecoming, here's an interesting thing. If you'll recall, when Spider-Man does confront that black guy who's in the middle of a deal, that guy is actually the cousin of Miles Morales. Which means a lot of people are theorizing, hey, maybe Miles will be Spider-Man for Spider-Man
I
Homecoming
would
too.
believe that, but the problem is that Tom Holland has stated clearly that his contract is applied for 2 more main Spider-Man movies. So I'm
Did you see
sorry.
the video where
Like-
Tom Holland kind of
Yeah, he
almost
tried to.
spoiled?
Not just that, Tom Holland in all interviews tried to spoil the movie, and everyone had to intervene in order to shut him up.
It's like, Tom, no!
Especially
Oh.
Benedict Cumberbatch.
But that's topped by the one where back in 2017 or 16, Bruce Banner's actor and
Mark
Rhodey's
Ruffalo.
actor,
Mark Ruffalo,
yeah, Mark Ruffalo and Don Cheadle.
Don Cheadle,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, basically they were being interviewed, and basically Mark Ruffalo said everyone dies, and then Don Cheadle went, dude, and then basically quieted him.
Also,
Couldn't they just ask them to edit those bits out?
Also, in case you're wondering, it happened also during development. Yes, there is another instance where Chris Evans, during production or interviews, is laughing his ass out. Again, it's another fucking meme. Maybe an entire compilation of him laughing like that.
Laughing.
Yes.
Uh-huh. And I've already mentioned the fear of Guardians of the Galaxy 3. People think that Nebula will take Gamora's place, but the other Guardians will be brought back to life, even though now that we know the Soul Stone thing, though, yeah.
Like
Gamora may be
I
back
don't
that
really
way.
I don't really theorize on what's gonna happen. I just know that it's gonna happen, and
You
that's
know-
what pisses me off.
And
You-
let's talk about the biggest one, because yes, Black Panther was kind of the biggest shock to everyone. Like, okay, T'Challa literally is kind of just starting out. Like, I know he's been around
And
since
he
Civil
was
War, but-
very popular. Like
yeah, like he just started. Now, okay, the only way people are thinking that there could be a Black Panther 2 without him is if they do what happened in the comics when T'Challa went under a coma and that's have his sister Shuri take over.
as the white
But-
tiger. I
But was
No,
she,
no, no,
but,
no,
but was she,
Shuri
was
was
she
moments-
established?
Shuri was momentarily the Black Panther in the comics when
Okay.
T'Challa was in the coma.
Yes, Dwibs, she was established.
In the films, I mean.
Yes.
Now, granted, to me, I'm honestly hoping that T'Challa does come back. I think he will come back because
That's the
okay,
thing, Jovah. Before Avengers 4, we only have our 2 other movies, Ant-Man and the Wasp and the Captain Marvel movie. We already know that the Captain
Yeah.
Marvel movie is going to be to establish her character and connect her to what's going to happen now at the end of with the Stinger with Infinity War. And we know that the Ant-Man and the Wasp movie is going to be about to see what has happened to Scott got basically Ant-Man, the Wasp, and Hawkeye, basically.
Yeah.
Which will probably, I'm already predicting that it's gonna end with either one of them or possibly all of them also getting turned to ashes by the
His
finger
daughter.
snap. Oh God, yes.
His daughter's going to disintegrate before his very eyes.
But only after that we only know about, well, officially, quote unquote, we only know about the Avengers movie of next year, 2019. After that, silence. And I understand the thought process because, of course, you want to keep mystery on that. But the problem is,
They should have done
unfortunately,
that for this movie.
because of things like San Diego Comic-Con, Marvel was kind of compelled to already mention a couple of the titles that were in plan in the future, and amongst these, like Jovah said, we have the Black Panther sequel, the Spider-Man sequel, the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and not just that, a standalone Black Widow movie, so also
Yeah.
that.
Although I heard that the Black Widow movie is actually a prequel, so.
Well,
Oh,
even then, because of this, the moment is completely ruined. And I'm sorry because that's supposed to be an emotional moment. We get also Tom Holland improvising, including Doctor Who. That's amazing. Like, I would understand when people on the SMB said that that moved to tears when Spider-Man died,
Mhm.
but I was so distanced from that, and I
I
shouldn't have been.
understand.
The movie
Yeah.
was that offensive in this regard, and I wish instead I was just as invested as I was before.
Let me
just
sum up how
happened
I
in a
would have
single
done this
moment.
better.
It's
Let me, yeah, let me
Well,
sum up
let me
how I.
finish.
I'm sorry. Go on to you.
No, I'm done. Go chat for the
Okay.
moment. Go ahead.
Let me sum up how I would have done this ending better. Okay, you want to have half the heroes go out, fine, but here's the thing, honestly. Why not have had the newer heroes be the one left around? Like, okay,
Yeah,
I get the reason.
exactly.
Like, okay, I understand the reason why they're leaving the older heroes alive because, Tony has to reconcile with Cap. Like, I get that, okay. But, okay, why not maybe just leave Tony and Cap alive? And heck, seriously, we know that a lot of the older actors' contracts may have been running out. Like, okay, while we may have been sure that some would have come back, imagine if the original Avengers had been gone. Like, not only would the world be thrown in turmoil, we'd be worried because a lot of them don't have sequels confirmed, and Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. have stated that their contracts are close to over by Avengers 4, and this would have counted as that. Like, we'd actually be left wondering because, yeah, if anyone is due to eventually die in the MCU, it's gonna be Captain America,
Yeah.
let's be honest. I mean, like, well, he's earned it, and, he has at least two possible successors, one being Sam Wilson, the other being
The other
Bucky
being
Barnes.
Bucky. Like, again, I was theorizing that he would have been one of the casualties, and one of the other two would take his role, just like it happened in the comics too.
Like, even if it was going to be temporary, we'd be a lot more unsure. And, okay, I'm going to be quite honest, them killing off Black Panther, I mean, whether or not it was your plan...
It's Black Panther and Spider-Man that cements the deal. Like,
yeah, it's like, well, again, I mean, okay, whether or not you knew if those were going to be successes or whatnot, I'm sorry, but I don't think financial success should have dictated that or whatnot. Like, again, I mean, assume that they would have been as good as they were. Like, imagine, if you will, an entire Phase 3, well, okay, the second half of Phase 3, being the world having to deal with what it's like without the Avengers. They could have even had more time to work on Avengers 4 because, yeah, Avengers 4 was filmed back-to-back with
again, we don't even know what
War.
the title is going to be at the moment. Probably going to be announced at San Diego Comic-Con in August, but we'll see.
It's like, well, we could have had those sequels, and then those sequels could have been in between these two movies, and then we could have seen what the world is like without them. I mean, sure, we'll probably get to see what it's like without them in Ant-Man and the Wasp, but we won't in Captain Marvel because that's a prequel sent in 1995. A great year, but still, I digress. Still a prequel, so we're only really getting Ant-Man and the Wasp for that. And yeah, let's talk about this. Everyone agreed that killing off Black Panther would be commercial suicide at the point after we saw Black Panther. I mean, okay, whether or not Marvel didn't know that now, I'm pretty sure that they're going to make...
apparently they were expecting Black Panther to do as well as Ant-Man and Doctor Strange.
Oops. And okay, no matter what the original plan is, I'm sorry, I'm willing to bet money that even if they have it originally that he won't return, they're going to change it so that he will return. I mean, no way they're going to skimp out on making the Black Panther kind of money. Like, that's their highest grossing solo hero film now. And okay, like you said, Spider-Man. Spider-Man is Marvel's mascot. That would be like
To
if
the
Looney
point,
Tunes killed off
to the
Bugs
point
Bunny.
where YouTube is plagued by video capitalizing on just his name, and it's disgusting. But the point being that he's
Oh, yeah.
extremely
That's why
famous.
they had to make his death extra painful.
Yeah.
What, because of the Spider-Man Elsa ones?
Jovah, I just mentioned it. I don't want to remember. But the point being, in the comics, he's just as popular as Wolverine. Like he's
Heck,
one of
most
he's
comics
the
come with
top,
his face on the logo.
He's on the top, on one of the top dogs. And you're
Mhm.
seriously telling me with after just one movie and 2 crossovers participation, you're axing him off. Nobody
After
knows
Disney
what's
went
more
through all
bugs.
that trouble to
With
get the rights to
Sony.
Spider-Man? Ha.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, again, and like also Dwibs or Deji mentioned, I'm sure this will please
Yeah.
a lot Sony in how they handled an acquisition that they had. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell, man?
And then
I
with the
feel
other
like
Guardians...
in,
Oh, go on.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
And then with the other Guardians of the Galaxy, okay, even if we didn't know there was going to be a sequel or not with them, come on.
That
Only
would have
Rocket
been-
Raccoon made it
I
out
mean,
alive.
I would have partially believed that if only part of the team died, like only 2
Yeah.
or 3 at best. I was expecting Drax to die because his character arc is entirely tied to Thanos, and also Gamora because the same thing. And maybe
I
one
thought
of
Mantis
them
might live.
but Mantis, Groot, and Star Lord? Are you kidding me? Like,
Okay, yeah, that's the thing with Quill, actually. I was like, you think they'd leave Quill alive, because then he would see that, well, crap, because he did that stupid punch on Thanos,
But
Thanos was
no.
able to eventually achieve his goals. But no, Quill actually goes too. Like, I
Well,
get that it's
Jovah,
supposed
one of
to...
the theories that I actually have is that the heroes who are disintegrated are not actually dead, but something like in a pocket dimension, and I guess that will give the chance of like Strange to scold Peter because of this. But I'm just theorizing right now. Keep going.
Maybe. But yeah, it's like, well, I mean, I thought if anything they were going to leave Quill around, but it's like, no, I mean, okay, for all we know, he does not have to deal with the consequences of his action there. And considering how much of debt that action had on the world, that really stinks. But yeah, again, with Rocket being the only one alive, it's like, yeah, you expect us to believe that they're going to make an entirely new team of Guardians. Like, this isn't Teen Titans, y'all. This is Guardians of the Galaxy.
So
Okay. Let's see.
yeah,
There was
it's
that.
well, it's not any. Well, that's pretty much the end of a movie. We know that Avengers 4 will pick up from this. We know that Captain Marvel will basically strengthen the connection that Captain Marvel will have with the rest of the MCU, and we'll see
And
what
Tony
happened
and
to
Cap
Ant-Man,
finally
Wasp,
had
and
to-
Hawkeye. So we're only kept there waiting, thanks to this rating strap. So
I mean,
See you next.
it
See you
is-
next. See you next April.
yeah, we got your money.
I mean, it is a rating strap, but it's still.
And we'll
a
get
good-
your money next year.
Again,
I mean, I'll be-
Because
like
you all didn't see Justice
Like
League.
I mentioned, Jovah, they could have easily steal all the money in the world anyway. They did not need to lie explicitly like
Yeah.
that.
I agree. And
Again,
like,
it was
well,
just a giant marketing thing, and it's I think I think more people than you'd think actually knew it was still
Yeah.
going to be a two-parter
It's
before actually
also a thing
watching
that I
this.
want to mention. In case you, I never mentioned this properly in commentary. A bit to Pedro, I did, I think. But basically,
Mhm.
my relationship with the MCU has been kind of like a roller coaster. The start was kind of bad for me because even as a kid, I grew up with the Marvel comic books. So suddenly I was bombarded with all these superhero movies, and a lot of them were just these cinematic stuff. Well, not cinematic, but basically these cinematic adaptation that a lot of times took way too much their own liberties, and I did not like that. This also culminated in the lowest points to me, that were Iron Man 2, for the Dark World, and especially Iron Man 3.
oh, right, the
The
Mandarin.
Mandarin thing. Like, I understand that
Ah.
Iron Man 2 technically has more problems, but it's just the betrayal factor, okay?
The problem with
That's
that,
fair
though,
enough.
The character would not work in today's age.
But
I
again,
think
and
yeah.
it's I'm just using this to explain. I don't want to drag this way too much, but it's already.
Sure.
Like
Then
Crisis on Earth,
everything changed with the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Because after
Really?
that, I started to feel as if the movies were more like actual comic book movies. I could picture the scenes as if they were represented as panels with balloons. Like, would this scene work if it was just a panel in a comic book? And the answer was yes. Before, it was mostly uncertain, and only a very few times it was positive. But starting with Guardians of the Galaxy, they started to pick up on that. The movie started to be more similar to the comics as well. Elements like continuity and adaptations were actually more tied to what we were, and in a lot of cases actually worked out for the better. Some cases also
Civil War of all things. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have many issues with the Civil War movie.
Again,
you will not hear me deny the fact that they
managed
made
to turn Civil War into something positive is beyond me. Again, that's what they say in the Spider-Man Shadow Dimension run. If there are people who can actually turn something like the Clone Saga good, is them. But I also agree with what Pedro said in a sense that the Clone Saga still needs to be forgotten for the best. But my point being, at this point, like right now, at this point of Infinity War, there was a very good positive streak with the movies. I was very, happy with them. I was not too much annoyed by them, so it was a very good thing. And then this happens. This was the first time in years that I felt as if I was back from the start, like.
And ironically, it's not because they were diverging from the comics, but because they did something that you see a lot in the comics.
And keep in mind, not for the entire movie, but just for those selective points that I mentioned: Hulk, the scene with Gamora, the contrivance with Peter on Titan, and the ending. But aside from that, I really like everything else. Even the Black Order, even if, like Dwibs said, had a very limited screen time and no proper explanation. But I really enjoyed how they were transposed into the movie. So it was really a genuine thing, and also how the fact that I felt as if each character had some occasion where to shine. The only major exception would have been Bruce Banner, but I already mentioned that.
I think I see where you're coming from. It's like I said, this movie.
I'm basically almost done, but this changed things for the worse. And now I'm not sure what to think anymore, to the point that, at least for Ant-Man and the Wasp and Captain Marvel, I actually took the decision of spoiling myself when the movies will come out, and then decide to actually go to the cinema to see or not. At least for the time being, if Marvel wants my money and Marvel and Disney wants my money back, they will actually have to earn them. And I wish I did not. I wish I couldn't have to resort to this. But I honestly think is the best way for me right now. Go ahead.
I don't blame you.
That's fair.
Yeah, I just can see where you're coming from. Like, well, this movie is massive, like I said at the start of it. It's like, oh, here's the thing. With a movie here, every beat counts. And I really mean it, because there was such a big, vast cast here. So,
I've been
like,
building up for it for 10 years.
Yeah, so here's the thing. The movie, when it's great and it feels majorly great. The side effect is like, well, the negative bits. And even though those negative bits are in the extreme minority, I cannot emphasize enough that I still do overall like this movie. The negative bits, as few as they are, will hit just as hard as the good bits because of how big this movie is. Like, this is a movie that's been a decade in the making, so every bit is going to count. I guess the issue I feel with the ending of this, and like, okay, here's the thing. I look at this movie in several ways. Like, okay, if I look at it as a movie with Thanos as the hero, I enjoy the ending because, well, again, it's interesting seeing the hero be the villain. But when I look at it as a culmination of the MCU, I will admit, I feel that, again, okay, even if you wanted to do the finger snap thing and have that happen, temporary or not, do it with characters who weren't so obviously coming back. Because, again, why not do it with characters who weren't confirmed to be coming back? And if you wanted to settle the thing between Cap and Tony, then leave those two alive, but kill off some of the other ones. Like, well, it's ironic. Thanos says that the killing is random, but we, the audience, all know that it's not really.
All right, so I just want to say this
Go ahead, Deji.
to be on a more positive note, because something Dwibs mentioned how we said earlier we enjoyed this movie, but yet we were coming off negative. Just because we like the movie doesn't mean that we can't give it criticism.
Again, it's a lot easier to talk about.
There's a huge difference between being a fan and then there's being a blind fanboy.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a lot easier to
everything deserves criticism.
as the old saying goes, it's a lot easier to talk about something you don't like, whereas gush about something you do like without just getting repetitive.
To put in perspective, Dwibs, this is exactly the same thing that I feel about The Last Jedi, Episode 8. The movie has problems up the wazoo, but I still actually has found enjoyment into it, but because I actually enjoyed it. People like Jovah and you actually did not manage to enjoy despite the flaws, and that's perfectly fine. So that's how it is, Dwibs. Some people actually still enjoy things despite problems. The real argument would be when is the line where you just still call those things good things with problems and how you call them guilty pleasure. But that's a topic that I don't want to even bother to touch because it's a huge can of worms.
Heck, even I'll admit that there are some things.
Go ahead, Shiroi.
Yeah, I absolutely love this movie, despite how negative I've been about some aspects. It only actually took a downward spiral for me after the whole Star-Lord thing. That was the point where I was just kind of, all right,
checked
just
out.
get this over with. Yes, as you put it, I checked out.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's
that's
like,
one of my most hated tropes of in anything. So
yeah,
the rest of the movie I absolutely love, especially as somebody who. I've been told by many people that the Marvel universe in terms of the comics isn't worth it for the most part to try and figure out. So to just stick with the movie. So my attachment comes purely from the movies.
Yeah.
So I still knew how comics worked, however. So I knew that a lot of the deaths would be they'd go back on a lot of the deaths, and I actually think that despite the whole very valid complaint that we know for a fact which ones are coming back to life anyway because future movie listings, I think even if we didn't have those, the way in which characters died, I think they actually made it very clear which ones were quote permanent and which ones were not.
If you're thinking about Gamora, though, remember the
that's why I said quote permanent and which ones weren't. I think they did a good job in clearing that up, at least.
I mean,
Still doesn't make them completely okay.
Yeah,
but I'm not as disappointed as say Teo is.
I think I can see where Teo's coming from. It feels iffy that they have to even clarify. Oh, these people actually do have a shot of coming back. It's like, well, I feel like, it feels a bit iffy when pretty much you have to state, oh yeah, this character totally has a chance of coming back. Like, I mean, okay. It was obvious that Superman was going to come back at the end of Dawn of Justice, but we didn't spend a long time talking about how he was going to come back. We just sort of knew it. Like, let me put it like this. In DC Comics, death sometimes has more of a meaning, sometimes, to the point where Superman even laments that a hero who actually does permanently die doesn't get as much people to his funeral because Superman actually did get a lot of people come to his funeral. Nice inner joke there. The point being is like, with here, it does feel a bit like a publicity's ratings trap. And I think the weird thing is like, it's never felt like the MCU has had to do this before. Like, even when they had Civil War, it never felt like a publicity trap.
Yeah.
And,
I think they're misguided a little bit because unlike movies that, revolve around lesser-known superheroes like Ant-Man and Black Panther, they should have expected this particular movie to get a lot of traffic without the need of them, having to do that.
Not only that, but this is also kind of negatively affecting people who aren't as familiar with comics with me until like, okay, if you aren't as familiar with comics, chances are you may think, wow, so Black Panther, who I've just restarted to like, is now dead. And if you are into comics, you're like, wow, they just apparently killed Black Panther to get a big cry out of the audience. Like, I mean, I get it, but I think if they really wanted to emphasize their deaths, then all their deaths should have been as long and painful as Peter's. Because, here's the thing. When most of them supposedly die, they just go puff, 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 quickly before even many words are said or whatnot. Peter's death actually is drawn out, so it does feel a lot more emotionally impactful. The problem is that most other Avengers, when they go out, don't get to have that, per se. Which is kind of a shame. Like, if anyone should have gotten something of a speech while dying as well, in addition to Groot and Peter Parker, it should have been Black Panther.
Oh boy, here we go.
What would Groot say?
I am Groot. I am Groot. I am Groot. We are Groot.
Which translated out to Dad.
Yeah, to Rocket. Yeah. And his last word was complimented when Rocket grew. We made him grow, basically.
Mm.
Now, to sum it up, though, this overall does not ruin the movie for me. It does sort of take its placement in the MCU for me, though. It's a good movie overall in and of its own, but like a Pirates of the Caribbean 2 Dead Man's Chest, it feels like it has an ending that could have easily been averted if they just did things a little differently, and now we, the audience, have to wait a long time to see it to come
And
to
actually,
a conclusion.
again, be honest during the marketing. Even if you wanted to, build up the mystery, like say that something, I don't know, go around it. Say that, yeah, it may be still a two-parter, but this will still have a conclusion on its own or something. Like,
Yeah. I mean, they really didn't need to, deceive people with the two-parter stuff. And I get it, they had no negative intentions with it, but some people are not reacting too well to kind of being tricked like that because, again, I mean, what was really the point? I mean, some people still knew it was going to be a two-parter. Like, people argue that you should have known it was going to be a two-parter. So
I disagree because the fact that it was going to be a two-parter was only really revealed to a select few people, and then everyone knew for a while. And then the MCU tried to push it back. But I feel like if they didn't mention future movies, I honestly think they're biting off more than they can chew.
Yeah.
If they didn't announce initially that it was going to be a two-parter, and they didn't announce titles for future movies, I don't think we'd be having the majority of this conversation.
How ironic is it that this movie may not have been affected too much by what it did, but a lot of the marketing decisions surrounded it?
Yeah.
I mean, could you imagine if
it may be a count of the MCU getting a bit too cocky.
Could you imagine if as soon as after the movie, okay, cinemas don't do post-film trailers. But could you imagine if after the movie, all the characters that died have their next movies announced?
I'm gonna see if they get announced at Ant-Man and the Wasp, because yes, I'm excited to see Ant-Man and the Wasp, but that's because I feel like I need to know more about.
I mean, it'd be like this. It'd be like this: Finals will return, Face of Black, and then the trailer for Spider-Man: Homecoming 2 is released.
It's funny you mention that, dude, because Captain.
Dwibs, didn't that happen after the Amazing Spider-Man 2, where there was the trailer for X-Men: Days of Future Past?
Well, that was because Sony wanted Mark Webb back to direct Amazing Spider-Man 2, but Fox had him to direct an indie film. So Sony and Fox reached a deal where Mark Webb would come back to do ASM 2, provided that Fox got a trailer for Days of Future Past in there.
Also, didn't the trailer for Avengers show up after the credits of Captain America: First Avenger?
Yeah.
That literally happened. Wow. But yeah, I mean, again, now it's gonna turn into a big race. But yeah,
not exactly. It was just one of the opening scenes for it.
Yeah, I consider it a trailer, but I guess it depends on your perspective.
Anyway, we're already dragged enough this, so
yeah.
if there's anything
time
left,
for our final thoughts.
I already mentioned enough, so I'm gonna be extremely quick. I still enjoy this movie. It has problems. It's not my least favorite MCU movie. Don't worry. I will still watch it over Iron Man 2 or 3, for example, over every day. I just think it disappointed me, but I still want to see where they can go with this, if they can find a way to save the potential problems with it. The end. Next.
Deji.
Yeah, I enjoyed this movie. I saw it twice. I had fun with it. And I will buy this once it comes out on Blu-ray.
I don't blame you.
Can I go next?
Go ahead.
Sure.
Okay, as a film, as a film on its own, if we're comparing it to other MC, okay, I'll compare it to ones that were released this year.
Okay.
In terms of films in the MCU that came out this year, I prefer Black Panther because I feel that's a better constructed film.
Yeah, Black Panther got better reception overall for obvious reasons,
But I still enjoyed the film, even with the shortcomings that we all mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that the other superhero films we got this year. We've had Black Panther, we've had Deadpool 2. I prefer those two over this one because ultimately I think those two did better with what they had than this film did.
It's weird. Black Panther, which was
There was
literally a
less
step.
pressure on them.
And
though,
I
but
know I'm
still,
probably
they
gonna
were
get-
better.
I know I'm probably
Fine.
going to get lynched for saying that a Fox Marvel film did something better than an MCU one. Heaven forbid I say that.
Oh, Dwibs, plenty of people say that every now and then.
Like the
Mhm.
Quicksilver, for example.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still enjoy the film.
Mm-hmm.
Alright then. Shiroi.
Sure.
Well, considering we were pretty negative at the throughout a lot of this, I'm just going to keep it positive for this one. Despite, the shortcomings that were mentioned, I actually thought that outside of the scene where we had the flashback with Gamora, I thought it was a very well-paced movie considering all the stuff that they had to deal with. The music was fantastic, probably one of, if not the best in the MCU. It was...
I was just gonna no, I was just doing my nose, but I was just gonna say that's not exactly saying much since other than like the themes for character, MCU scores haven't really been that memorable.
I'd say with Phase 3,
This
they're
one
memorable.
is pretty memorable,
Mhm.
though, I'd say.
Agreed.
How about the MCU as a whole?
Yeah, no, that's...
True.
I usually don't pay attention to movie scores anyway. I'm kind of more interested in what's actually going on.
Alright.
But, yeah, I enjoyed the ride for this one.
So, Shiroi,
Um,
your characters.
Hey, my favorite's still alive, I'm fine.
Shuri. Yeah.
No, Iron Man.
Oh, right, Iron Man.
Yes.
You'll die next year and you'll accept
Well,
it.
Shiroi, at least.
No, I will not.
Even if it's off screen, I know that also one of my favorite characters is still alive, Howard the Duck, so there you go.
Mhm.
True.
Yeah, Howard the Duck will defeat Thanos.
Actually,
and
Dwibs,
save
there's
everybody.
kind of an explanation for it, very quickly. Basically, the stones and the gauntlet actually works on the being of the same universe. If we're going for the classic story of our Duck, he's not from our universe, so it's logical that the gauntlet will not work on him.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
I
Shiroi.
guess.
You mean
Oh,
Shiroi?
No, it was
Sorry,
just...
sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's a good thing you kind of sidetracked there because there was a third point I was trying to remember that I'd forgotten. But yes, the first half of this movie is like one of, if not my favorite thing about it, because I absolutely love the character interactions and how they, introduced all the characters from where they left off. I just loved everything about it. I knew what they were doing with it. They were setting, I was like, oh, look how lovely all these people are before we murder them in front of you. But at the same time, I just love everything about the first half of this movie, despite, any antagonist showing up very early on. I still thought all the interactions were wonderful. And yeah, this was a great movie. Just need to see how they deal with this from now on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it.
It's
Jovah?
also gonna be. It's also
Oh.
gonna be the one last thing that we'll have to play in is we'll see
Yeah.
if the actual deal with Fox will pay off, and in that case, what the Marvel Studios will decide to do with all the new acquired characters on that. But
Yes.
again, we don't know
Practice,
anything
please.
yet completely certain, so we'll see.
But I like the X-Men being in their own universe.
Plot twist, Dwibs, the X-Men are bought by Comcast.
Oh, God, no.
Well, hey, at least they'll be in their own universe. Because if there's one
No.
thing the MCU, I'll be honest, guys, if there's one thing the MCU doesn't need right now is 50 billion more characters.
But I would like to see
I would
Galactus in
agree.
the MCU.
The
That-
problem,
that
the problem with the X-Men is that they're running out of characters.
But
Yeah, I mean,
whatever.
Wolverine's
I
interesting
just
storyline.
digressed. Finish us off, Jovah. We speak.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, this movie. Okay. The reason we were negative a lot here is because, again, we have to just pick apart the bad stuff. I mean, the bad stuff, while in the minority, let's not forget this is still a long movie, so even stuff that's in the minority is notable there. And again, it's just like, oh, there's a lot more detail in what goes wrong with the negative stuff. And yes, maybe you could say some of it was because of the writing and whatnot, not having as much room. I generally do think they could have done a lot of things better. And like I said, this movie overall is still great. And let me say, that's an amazing feat. Like, despite some of the plot holes it has, it still turns out pretty great because of how well it orchestrates stuff. The pacing overall, except for a few notable areas, is good. I will say this, Yeah, like Shuri said, the first half does a lot better than the second half, because the second half has a lot of those incredibly predictable moments. Like, it says something that even the final climax with the time stone used by Thanos was like, yeah, I called it there. And, again, for all the negative moments there still is a boatload of great. The character interactions are freaking amazing. SpongeBob is canon. Let it be known. SpongeBob is canon in this universe. That is my favorite
I refuse to accept this.
Well, Shiroi, it was said by your favorite character.
Nope, he looks like Voldemort. Iron Man is wrong.
How about we say
Maybe they couldn't say Voldemort? I don't know, but I don't think he looks like
French
Squidward
version.
at
We
all.
say it in the French version, but yeah, go ahead, Jovah.
Oh, they call him Voldemort in the
Yes,
French version?
Yes.
Wow.
And the French version is the best version of this movie.
So that's why people fuse Squidward with Voldemort for it. Okay,
10
then.
out of 10.
Sorry,
But
my
yeah.
dogs are barking at nothing.
But yeah, well, despite for the Children of Thanos going out like wimps, they still look cool, and we do get some good fight scenes. Actually, we get some phenomenal fight scenes. Some of the best. The story overall is good and handled well by a phenomenal villain. Not my favorite villain, because Killmonger still holds the crown in that regard, but gosh dang, Thanos is just all that in a bag of chips and feels. Like, it says something that I'm feeling the feels with a psychopathic murderer like him, but god dang, I mean, for as predictable as some scenes with him were, it still could bring a tear.
The thing is, he has presence, but he's also able to back that presence up, which is a problem in other works. Is that brute force villains, they have their presence, but they don't have anything outside of that. So that's why I really like Thanos.
Yeah, some of the deaths were a bit iffy for me, but for the most part, the deaths are handled well enough. The deaths that we were pretty sure actually will stay anyway.
Yeah, Loki and Heimdall, I'm actually convinced that they're actually dead, so there you go.
Yeah,
When
although
Loki died, I just sat back and was like, well, we're off to a great start.
Oh, that reminds me, there's a funny fan theory going around that Loki is actually still alive, and he was Bruce Banner, but in disguise, and that's why the whole thing wouldn't work, and I'm like, right.
Totally.
That's
Yes.
quite elaborate.
Yeah, which totally explains how the Hulk keeps popping up a little bit here and there, but not fully.
Go ahead.
I
But
kind
yeah.
of have a theory. Oh, sorry. Go.
Oh, you were saying, Shuri?
Yeah, it's just I kind of have a theory that, considering how the Hulk was throughout that movie, I'm just considering, there's been a few predictable points about Infinity War. I'm just sitting there thinking, and I thought this while watching the movie. It's like, okay, we're gonna have a fight, and Hulk's gonna come in out of nowhere where everything seems like it's going to shit, and he's gonna resolve it. You know the kind of thing I mean.
Oh, by the way, when after Black Panther came out,
Yeah.
Feige said, "Oh, there are many stories to tell with Black Panther." Oh yeah, we killed him off, didn't we?
About that.
Kevin Feige himself confirmed that there's going to be a Black Panther 2 a few months after Black Panther came out and was a hit.
Well,
So-
shit, we ruined that too.
I mean, but they're Marvel Studios. They're richer than I don't know, like planet Earth at this point. They can reshoot that bit in like 2 minutes.
They probably will.
And don't go saying oh it's too much of a hassle.
Yes,
Ridley
yes,
Scott
no,
replaced Kevin Spacey with Christopher Plummer in
Not
like
just
a
that,
couple of
remember,
weeks.
and in the final sequence, Black Panther will be replaced by Hayden Christensen.
No!
Anyway.
But don't think about it. He wears a black suit in Revenge of the Sith, so...
So going on, this
Yeah.
movie is a phenomenal movie with notable shortcomings. Hopefully those shortcomings can be overcome by what's to come in the future. It does leave me a bit iffy thinking about the future of it, mainly with the Captain Marvel movie. The Ant-Man and the Wasp movie looks amazing, so I'm confident in that. Captain Marvel is gonna be a hard sell for me. Like, it may even be harder than Civil War. Like, that's how damaged Carol Danvers' character is right now.
You're still gonna see it anyway. Don't even try.
I'm not quite sure if I'll see it in theaters.
Well,
Yeah,
Jovah,
you are.
Are you gonna do like what I'm gonna do? Like spoil yourself
What?
and then decide?
I might. Yeah, like I said, I feel a bit iffy about some things, not to the point where I'm going to renounce the MCU. Oh, no, heck no. I still want to see those sequels. It's just, overall, it's a movie that started off grand, kind of ended up being uncovered as a unmasked marketing project, which could have been handled better.
Mhm.
Which doesn't stop it from being good. Let me repeat, I still like this movie. Love it. I would give it, I'd put it in the A- ranking, while I'd put Black Panther in the S rank.
So you're saying it's shit?
This
And
interview
A
is
for
over.
A.
See you for the next round table.
All right, goodbye.
See ya.
See ya.